Chapter 622. At this moment, the rays of the morning sun shone on the woman's face, making her skin seem even more translucent. She looked at Guoming with her bright eyes and said worriedly, "No matter how strong he is, this is the central state. There are as many strong cultivators as there are clouds in the sky. Outstanding talents come forth in large numbers, and the human king stands proudly. All right. I'll think of a way to ask the outer sect disciples to help me inquire about the news. When I find Brother Xiaofu, I'll immediately tell you. Then you can go and find him." Guoming said helplessly. "Who said I am going to find him?" Zhu Shui's bright eyes instantly glared at Guoming while a wisp of redness crept up her face, and then her beautiful figure turned around and left. Why are all women so weird? Why is she blushing? Guoming touched the back of his head and left. In the dark and gloomy space, there were rocks everywhere. Swoosh swoosh, two figures flashed past. The one in front was a young man in a purple robe who was around 17 or 18 years old. He had a purple cloth wrapped around a broadsword on his back. His face was resolute. Behind him was a fat man. He was wearing a loose robe and his stomach was bulging. The muscles on his neck were like waves as he chased after the young man in the purple robe. "Du Xiaofu, you are so mean. You were hiding behind him. Why did you only come out after I was beaten? It would have been better if you had come out before I was snatched away. I heard that you are a martial artist and talisman cultivator. Is that true?" The fat man chased after him and kept talking. "Fatty, why are you following me?" Du Xiaofu finally couldn't take it anymore. He landed on a rock in the valley and asked the fat man who was chasing after him. The fat man landed. His body looked fat, but it was unusually light. He didn't have a trace of dust on him. He was like a light swallow. After stuffing a pill into his mouth, the fat man looked at Du Xiaofu with a pale face and smiled. "Actually, I am here to help you." "Help me?" Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and glanced at the fat man. "What can you help me with?" "Moreover, I don't need anyone's help." "You definitely need someone's help." The fat man looked at Du Xiaofu with certainty and said, "Before entering the giant rock space, I heard a piece of news about you. Do you want to hear it?" "About me?" Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and said to the fat man, "Let's hear it. You defeated Yi Xian, who is ranked 29th on the bronze roll, in a single move on the Sky Marshal Plaza. This is an absolute insult to the people on the bronze roll. I heard that a few terrifying fellows on the bronze roll have already discussed this. They are going to teach you a lesson in the giant rock space. They will teach you a lesson as miserably as they can teach you a lesson." The fat man told Du Xiaofu seriously. He didn't make up this news. He really did hear it by accident. Du Xiaofu didn't doubt the fat man's words. His gaze wavered slightly as he looked at the fat man and said, "Since that's the case, won't you be unlucky if you follow me?" "Why follow me? I'm not afraid. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just loyal and sentimental. Since you helped me deal with those people on the bronze list who beat me up, I naturally have to repay you." The fat man patted his meaty chest and said to Du Xiaofu in an imposing manner, "Although I'm not as strong as you, once I recover to my peak, I will definitely be able to help you fend off one or two of those people who come looking for trouble with you. Say something that's believable." Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at the fat man. This sinister fat man was even worse than Meng Laikai. It would be strange if he believed that this fat man was loyal and sentimental. Du Xiaofu wouldn't believe him even if he was beaten to death. The fat man chuckled when he heard this. He looked at Du Xiaofu a few times and suddenly changed the topic. The fat on his face moved slightly as he said, "Actually, I want to follow you to rob those people on the bronze lists." "Fatty, I don't plan on bringing you along." Du Xiaofu shook his head rudely. He didn't want to bring this fatty with him. Moreover, it was a sinister fatty. Du Xiaofu was a little worried. Who knew when this sinister and cunning fat man would bite him back? If that happened, it would be too late for him to regret. "I've told you all my secrets. If you don't bring me along, it won't make sense. Moreover, if you bring me along, I won't have to share the energy copper talismans with you. You take 90% and I only need 10%. The fat man said seriously, "I can do it alone. Why should I bring you along?" Du Xiaofu shook his head and looked at the fat man. "You hate it when people call you fatty. I've always called you Fatty. Why do you still follow me? It's okay if you call me Fatty. You're stronger than me. I can't beat you anyway. The fat man didn't care at all. Du Xiaofu was taken aback. He actually had a feeling of speechlessness. Don't follow me anymore. Be careful or I'll let you strip me naked and stand here for a few days. Du Xiaofu didn't want to be entangled with this fat man. He turned around and left. All right, if you really don't want to, then I won't follow you. But can you at least return the energy copper talisman that those bastards snatched from me? Otherwise, I'll be eliminated and won't be able to participate in the next round. Looking at Du Xiaofu's back, the fat man said helplessly. He really didn't dare to continue chasing. He had seen that guy's savagery and shamelessness with his own eyes. He didn't doubt that guy would strip him naked. I didn't take the energy copper talismans from you. I took them from those people. Why should I give them to you? Du Xiaofu walked away. His indifferent voice came. If you have the ability, acknowledge me as your big brother and I'll return the energy copper talismans to you. Heaven and earth are my witnesses. Today I, Hao Guan, acknowledge Du Xiaofu as my big brother. I don't ask to be born in the same year, month, and day, but I ask to die in the same year, month, and day. In the future, we'll share blessings and misfortunes. If I violate this oath, I won't be able to find a wife for the rest of my life and I'll grow fatter and fatter. Du Xiaofu's figure paused. He suddenly turned around and looked behind him. He saw that the fat man was actually seriously bowing to heaven and earth. He even directly kowtowed. Seeing this scene, Du Xiaofu was also stunned. His eyes were filled with astonishment. After respectfully kowtowing 3 times to the gray sky, the fat man immediately stood up and strode to Du Xiaofu's side. With a serious face, he bowed to Du Xiaofu and said, "Little brother greets big brother." Du Xiaofu looked at the fat man. He felt that there was something in his heart that made him panic. However, he was stunned and didn't know what to say. Phew! After 3 breaths, Du Xiaofu directly took out 8 energy copper talismans. He stuffed them into the fat man's hand and said, "I'll return the energy copper talismans to you. Goodbye." After saying this, Du Xiaofu turned around and left. He felt that the farther he was from the fat man, the better. The fat man put the energy copper talismans into his badge. The red energy copper talismans immediately became bright again. He then continued to follow Du Xiaofu and said with great enthusiasm, "Big brother, where are we going now? I've returned the energy copper talismans to you. Why are you still following me?" Du Xiaofu strode away and didn't linger. The fat man strode to catch up with Du Xiaofu. He looked sideways at Du Xiaofu and said, "I've already acknowledged you as my big brother. If I don't follow you, who will I follow? I just bowed to the heavens and earth. We'll share blessings and hardships together. I don't ask to be born in the same year and month, but I ask to die in the same year and month. If you don't bring me along and I die in danger, I'll bow to the heavens and earth. If my oath comes true, then you will also. Don't say any more." Stuff. Du Xiaofu's figure suddenly stopped. He almost directly covered the fat man's mouth. "Big bro, does this mean you've agreed to take me along?" Fatty chuckled. His eyes curved into crescents as he smiled. Phew! Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. He couldn't wait to slap his own mouth. He just said something stupid. He didn't expect to provoke such a fat man. After adjusting his emotions, Du Xiaofu looked at the fat man helplessly and said, "Okay, I'll let you follow me. However, there are rules. You have to listen to me. Otherwise, you don't have to follow me." The fat man nodded without hesitation and said with a smile, "No problem. I'll listen to Big Brother." Du Xiaofu asked helplessly, "What's your name?" "Zhao." The fat man smiled. "I know you're fat. I'm asking you what's your name?" Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at the fat man. The fat man was also helpless and said, "My surname is Hao. My name is Judge. Judge as in judge." Judge Hao. Du Xiaofu looked at Judge Hao. This name, coupled with this fat man's body, made him feel helpless. The continuous mountain range was enshrouded in dense mist. This was a paradise on earth. The mountain peaks were towering and the mist lingered. There were also extraordinary spiritual herbs everywhere. The energy of heaven and earth was astonishing. On the mountain peak, There was a girl who looked to be about 15 or 16 years old. Shadows condensed in her hands. As the girl's hand seals condensed, there was a dazzling white light around her body. It was like a divine light enveloping and spreading. A vast pressure spread out. Waves of heaven and earth energy suddenly fluctuated rapidly from the surrounding air. Chapter 6:23. The girl wasn't old, but her body was already curvy. Her delicate and childish face was like a jade carving. It wouldn't take long for her to be born and amaze the world. Boom! When the last hand seal was formed, the young lady waved her hand and a 6-star mysterious soul symbol master-level power swept out. Her hair danced in the air and the surrounding space trembled. Then, a pair of delicate hands unexpectedly formed 23 array flags. The 23 array flags emitted a frightening fluctuation. At this moment, all the energy within the young lady's body seemed to have been poured into the 23 array flags, causing her somewhat tender face to begin to show some paleness. At the age of 15 or 16, a 6-star mysterious spiritual symbol master was able to set up a 6-star Permetha talisman array. If there were people from the outside world here, they would probably be astonished. She was only 15 or 16 years old. In this world, which top juniors from big clans and forces could reach such a stage? Walala, the 23 formation flags disappeared in the girl's palm. On her pale and delicate face, her eyes were clear and pure. It was so clean that it made people feel as if they didn't belong to the mortal world. She curled her lips and muttered, "My spiritual soul power is still lacking. I can't support it with my celestial chi. I can't set up a perfect talisman array. I'm afraid I'll be scolded by Master when he comes back." If there were experts from the outside world who heard the girl's words, they would probably be depressed. At the age of 15 or 16, a 6-star mysterious spiritual symbol master was still not satisfied with setting up a 6-star Permetha talisman array. She actually wanted to set up a 6-star perfect talisman array with her 6-star mysterious spiritual symbol master cultivation. She was simply a monster. She simply didn't want her peers from the outside world to live. After sighing, the girl looked at the clouds in the distance for a moment. Her delicate red lips opened slightly as she said, "Brother Xiaofu, where are you now? I will cultivate well. When I become stronger, Master will agree to let me out. At that time, I won't need your protection anymore. You have to work hard too. Don't be surpassed by me." Chirp, chirp. Suddenly, a sharp and clear cry was heard. A huge green bird flapped its wings and flew over from the clouds in the sky. The giant cyan bird was enormous, and its cyan feathers were suffused with flowing light. Its appearance was extremely moving, and it was incomparably noble. Its aura spread out, as if it was the emperor of all birds. The giant green bird hovered in midair, its black eyes shining brightly. It blinked and said to the young girl, "Sister Xingyu, your master is back." Is Master back?" Hearing this, a smile immediately appeared on the young girl's face. Her graceful figure flew out, drawing a beautiful arc in the air before landing lightly on the giant green bird's body. She said, "Quickly take me to Master. I miss Master too." In the gray and misty space, the 8 young men and women on the bronze roll looked dispirited. Their faces were green and red as they stood in front of a dozen young men. These dozen young men all had extraordinary temperaments. The aura around them slowly fluctuated, causing the hearts of the 8 young men and women on the bronze roll to tremble. They did not dare to look directly at them. Among the dozen young men with extraordinary temperaments, a young man in white who looked to be 24 or 25 years old walked out. His gaze swept across the 8 people who were in a sorry state, and he said indifferently, "Can any of you tell me what is going on?" The young man's tone was indifferent, but it revealed an aura that was difficult to refuse. His white clothes outlined his sturdy and muscular body, and he was covered with a light cyan cloak, which added to his free and easy temperament. The young man in white stood there quietly, and it was enough to make the hearts of the 8 young men and women tremble. "Senior Ruofeng, it's Du Xiaofu. That brat used a middle-grade Dao artifact and snatched us." A young man in luxurious clothes replied. At this moment, he did not even raise his head when facing the young man in white and the cyan cloak. He did not dare to look directly at him. The young man in white and the cyan cloak raised his gaze indifferently and continued to ask, "He alone snatched the 8 of you?" The young man in luxurious clothes bit his lips and nodded forcefully. He added, "That brat has a middle-grade Tao artifact on him. He is really too strong. A loss is a loss. Our skills are not as good as others. Why blame the middle-grade Tao artifact? The 8 of you were still snatched. The reputation of the bronze roll has been lost because of you." The young man in white and the cyan cloak glanced at the 8 people indifferently. Then he smiled faintly and said softly, "Du Xiaofu, interesting. Really interesting." In the misty space, huge rocks stood tall like small mountains. The entire space was like a huge stone forest. The stone forest was crisscrossed like a maze. No wonder there was a rumbling sound last night. Then I saw many people. Fortunately, I escaped quickly. But big brother, are we really just going to wait here? Are we not going to rob? In the stone forest, on a rock, Hao Bian looked at Du Xiaofu and muttered. He was like a chatterbox, talking non-stop. "Can you rest for a while?" Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed to rest, could not take it anymore. He raised his head and glanced at Hao Bian. It was really hard to imagine that the ancient heaven sect's outstanding talent was actually a chatterbox. However, along the way, Du Xiaofu heard a lot of news from Hao Bian's chatterbox. For example, among the newly promoted inner sect disciples, there were a total of 4 human kings and 11 outstanding talents. Hao Bian was also one of the 11 outstanding talents. This shocked Du Xiaofu. As expected of the ancient heaven sect, one of the 9 major forces of the Central Plains. Among the newly promoted inner sect disciples, there were actually 4 human kings and 11 outstanding talents. This was enough to frighten people. In the entire Central Plains, how many human kings and outstanding geniuses were there in the 9 major forces? Furthermore, there were probably many human kings and outstanding geniuses from other forces as well. It was no wonder that some people said that in the Central Continent, heroes rose together. There were many outstanding people, and the King of Men stood there. There was an endless stream of peerless talents, and their names shook the world. At this moment, Du Xiaofu finally understood. "Okay, I won't talk anymore. I'll also meditate for a while." Judge Hao was very tactful and no longer spoke. He sat cross-legged not far from Du Xiaofu. The fat body sat down and looked like a round meatball. After stuffing a few more pills into his mouth, Judge Hao finally began to regulate his breathing and heal his injuries. Seeing this, Du Xiaofu also closed his eyes and meditated. There was no need to run in the giant rock space. Anyway, at midnight, there would be changes again. At that time, who knew where they would appear again? However, Du Xiaofu did not have the time to meditate. In the mountain forest, there were people passing by from time to time. Many of the newly promoted inner sect disciples were in groups of 3 to 5, while others were in groups of 10. In a few hours, they had passed by no less than 7 groups. However, only a group of newly promoted inner sect disciples had a badge on their shoulders that was emitting light, proving that they had not been robbed by the experts on the bronze roll. However, the other 6 groups of newly promoted inner sect disciples had a dim glow on their shoulders. Each of them looked miserable and battered. Some of them were even covered in wounds. It was obvious that they had been robbed clean. When these newly promoted inner sect disciples saw Du Xiaofu and Hao Bian sitting cross-legged in the stone forest, they seemed to recognize Du Xiaofu and Hao Bian. Their faces changed slightly, but they did not dare to disturb them and hurriedly left. After Hao Bian adjusted his breathing, he was not affected at all. He continued to adjust his breathing and recuperate for a few hours. A layer of dazzling light enveloped Hao Bian's meatball-like body. Within the light, there was a fluctuation of profound qi. It was as if there were small snakes of energy shuttling back and forth. It was extremely mysterious and gave off an ancient aura. Feeling the fluctuation of profound qi from Hao Bian's body, Du Xiaofu also paid more attention. That kind of profound qi was not ordinary. The cultivation method that Hao Bian cultivated was also not simple. "This guy seems to be not simple," Du Xiaofu said in his heart. "Hao Bian, Other than being a chatterbox and a little sinister, his talent and strength were indeed not simple. He might not be able to fight against 4 people of the same cultivation on the bronze roll. However, if he were to fight against 3 cultivators of the same cultivation in the outside world, it would not be a problem for him to fight against 4 people of the same cultivation. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's gaze that was on Hao Bian's body suddenly shifted to the distance. Whoosh whoosh, in a short period of time, in the air in front of the stone forest, several figures flew over. After a few flashes, they appeared in the air above the stone forest. Waves of energy fluctuations swept up the gravel below. A total of 8 figures came over. Their expressions were hurried and their speed was extremely fast. In an instant, they appeared in the air above the stone forest. Little rookies, you won't be able to escape. Behind the 8 of them, there was a group of people chasing after them. Loud shouts and laughter resounded through the sky. It's Du Xiaofu. He's down there. Let's go down. Among the 8 figures in front, a delicate voice sounded out. Then, a beautiful figure took the lead and landed not far from Du Xiaofu. The one who landed was a woman in her 20s wearing soft armor. The soft armor outlined her exquisite figure, revealing her slender and straight legs. On each of her wrists, there was a palm-sized scimitar that looked like daggers. Her healthy yellow skin faintly revealed a layer of rouge. Her bright eyes were as sharp as a female cheetah's. Chapter 624. It's her. Du Xiaofu naturally wouldn't forget this woman. She was Qiao Yingmeng, who he had met yesterday when he first entered the giant rock space. However, Qiao Yingmeng's expression was grave and she was in an extremely sorry state. Her moving face was pale, proving that she had just experienced a bloody battle. Whoosh whoosh, after Qiao Yingmeng landed, another 7 figures hurriedly landed. The one in front was a man in blue who looked to be around 23 or 24 years old. Under his sword-like eyebrows, his long and narrow eyes were like spring water. However, this young man's gaze was originally as gentle as a spring breeze, but now his face was pale and he seemed to be in a sorry state. Beside the blue-clothed young man was a noble young man in a light yellow robe with golden patterns. He was handsome, but his expression wasn't much better than the blue-clothed young man and the woman. There were also 4 young men and a young woman. They all had extraordinary temperaments and their faces were pale. Du Xiaofu looked around. Originally, there were only 7 people in this group, but now there were 8. The other woman should have joined later. Spirit Talisman Master. Looking at the other woman, Du Xiaofu probed her aura. She was clearly a Spirit Talisman Master. As for the woman, Du Xiaofu felt a sense of déjà vu, as if he had seen her somewhere before. The woman was about the same age as Qiao Yingmeng. She was only around 20 years old. Her skin was whiter than snow and she was incomparably beautiful. She had elegant eyebrows, phoenix eyes, jade cheeks, and cherry lips. She could be considered a beauty. Although this woman lacked the wild beauty of Qiao Yingmeng, her delicate beauty was something that Qiao Yingmeng didn't have. At this moment, this delicate and beautiful woman was sizing up Du Xiaofu with her bright eyes. From the fluctuations in her gaze, she clearly recognized Du Xiaofu. It seems to be her, Du Xiaofu finally remembered. Back then, in the examination area of the ancient sky sect, on the last mountain peak, there was a formation that trapped several young men and women. One of them was this delicate and beautiful woman, who, as the 8 people landed, Hao Bian, who was meditating, immediately woke up. After spitting out a mouthful of turbid air, he looked at the 8 people and his expression changed. Bian immediately came to Du Xiaofu's side and said, "Big brother, the one in blue is called Su Chuyun. She is a human king stage master. She's not bad. The one in armor is called Qiao Yingmeng, the man is called Mo1 and the woman Mujiajia. Is Mujiajia? The 3 is Jiajia? Du's Jiajia was Jiajia. Jiajia. Ajia. Jiajia. Ji Lu Jiajia. Jiajia Ju, Ajia, S Ju was Ju Jiajia Jen was a Ju was Ju. According to what Qiao Yingmeng knew, the fatty's temper was very strange. Just like Du Xiaofu, he didn't team up with others. Why was he with Du Xiaofu now? However, Qiao Yingmeng didn't have time to think about it. She immediately looked at Du Xiaofu and said, Du Xiaofu, quickly set up a glyph array. Someone is chasing us from behind. It's Ji O Ming, the human king on the bronze ranking. His strength isn't something we can contend against. Du Xiaofu's expression changed slightly when he heard that. There was one human king and 3 heroes in this group, yet they were still beaten so miserably. One could imagine how powerful the experts on the bronze rankings behind them were. Little rookies, a glyph array won't be able to trap us. We won't be able to escape. The chasing shouts grew closer and closer. In the distant sky in front of them, numerous figures were already rushing over with lightning-like speed, wrapped in long rays of light. Fuck, Du Xiaofu cursed inwardly. This trouble was definitely brought about by Qiao Yingmeng's group. Without any hesitation, Du Xiaofu formed a series of hand seals in his hand. Energy fluctuations immediately swept over from the surrounding air as a dazzling white light covered his body like a divine light. Swish, swish. In the sky in front of them, several long rays of light swept over. As their auras descended, sand and pebbles were sent flying in the stone forest below. The auras were astonishing, causing the originally pale faces of the youths behind Su Chuyun to turn grave at this moment. As those auras descended, Judge Hao's face turned grave. Those auras were much more tyrannical compared to the ordinary bronze list teams, especially the first 2 auras. As their auras collapsed, Judge Hao felt a pressure in his heart. Boom! In this short period of time, waves of natural energy rapidly fluctuated in the surrounding air. In Du Xiaofu's hands, 21 formation flags that emitted astonishing fluctuations were formed, causing the surrounding air to violently tremble. However, at this moment, the energy within Du Xiaofu's body was endlessly poured into the 21 formation flags, causing his resolute face to turn slightly pale. Without any delay, the 21 formation flags in his hands immediately swept towards the sky in front of him. Swish swish. The 21 formation flags wrapped around the space in front of them with lightning speed and trajectory, mysteriously connecting with each other. After which, they transformed into dazzling glyph-like pillars that soared into the sky. Be careful, there's a 6-star beginner symbol master among the rookies. Quickly retreat. The expressions of the figures that had just appeared in the sky immediately changed. Not long ago, they had broken a 6-star beginner symbol array and originally thought that the other party was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Never did they expect that there was still a 6-star beginner symbol master hiding. Immediately, they began to rapidly retreat. 5-direction mountain binding formation. A low shout rang out from Du Xiaofu's mouth. The formation flags transformed into light pillars that soared into the sky, immediately transforming into a formidable symbol array that enveloped the surrounding area. The 5-direction mountain binding formation. Back then, Du Xiaofu had used it in order to escape the pursuit of the few martial kings on the long river of the central region. However, when Du Xiaofu had used it back then, he had practically exhausted all of his energy. Currently, Du Xiaofu was at his peak. He was a genuine 6-star beginner symbol master. A 6-star beginner symbol array was a piece of cake for him. Rumble, as the symbol array enveloped the area, wind and clouds surged in the air, causing space to distort and become chaotic. Soon after, it trapped the few bronze ranking experts whose expressions had changed. The 5-direction mountain binding formation was a symbol array that focused on suppressing and not attacking. Hence, it had a special defensive aspect that made it difficult to forcefully break through. Let's go. As the symbol array was laid out, Du Xiaofu's complexion was somewhat pale. He did not dare to stay for even a second longer. Profound energy immediately gushed out from his feet as his figure soared into the sky. Du Xiaofu had also sensed the auras of the few bronze ranking experts. Especially the 2 at the front, their auras were extremely powerful. He could not allow himself to be used as a knife in this place. Following Du Xiaofu's departure, Hao Bian's reaction was not the slightest bit inferior to Du Xiaofu's. At practically the same time as Du Xiaofu, profound energy gushed out. His fat body was extremely fast and incomparably lithe. "Let's go, let's go!" Qiao Yingmeng tenderly shouted as she looked in the direction Du Xiaofu left. Her enchanting figure twisted as she quickly chased after him. Behind her, Su Chuyun's expression slightly changed. Without much hesitation, she immediately followed. Whoosh whoosh. Mo Wen and several others also quickly followed. Only Mu Jiajia's delicate and beautiful face had some slight astonishment. Just now, she had personally seen how Du Xiaofu laid out a 6-star beginner-level symbol array. It was simply as easy as stretching out his hand, as if it was instantly cast. It was even faster than a martial skill cast by an ordinary cultivator. And she was also a 6-star beginner-level symbol array master. Among the symbol array masters with the same cultivation, she was not considered weak. She had the talent of a hero. However, the 6-star beginner-level symbol array that she condensed earlier required Su Chuyun, Qiao Yingmeng, Mo Wen and the others to buy time for her to successfully set it up. But Du Xiaofu's symbol array just now was as if it was cast in an instant. As a symbol array master, she naturally knew the difference between the two. The difference was absolutely not small. After a short moment of astonishment, Mu Jiajia also immediately came back to her senses. Her beautiful figure flashed out and immediately followed. This 6-star beginner-level symbol array is not ordinary. It's much stronger than the one that the woman set up before. Let's work together and forcefully break it. Bang, bang, bang. The symbol array in the air above the stone forest made muffled sounds like thunder. Wave after wave of energy attacks collided with the symbol array, causing it to shake. However, it was not destroyed in one hit. After a series of powerful attacks, the talisman formation that covered the sky above the stone forest shook and finally began to crack. A moment later, the symbol array completely exploded under the impact of the powerful energy, turning into broken symbol arrays that filled the sky and dissipated. Rumble, the astonishing energy swept out, causing a large area of huge rocks to crack and explode. Rocks shot out. In the end, under the impact of the violent energy, a large area of the stone forest was razed to the ground and disappeared. That's a bunch of heroes and human king rookies. We can't let Yin Machin and Si Ruofeng's teams snatch them away. Silhouettes soared into the sky from within the array. They quickly chased after Yi Shiwen. A vigorous aura fluctuated, and the silhouettes suddenly disappeared in midair. A large area of the stone forest was razed to the ground, and the energy wind slowly dissipated. Not far away, there was a continuous stretch of rocky mountains and valleys. The continuous winding valleys were like a grayish-white python crawling in the middle of the valleys. There were layers upon layers of mountains, and it was completely silent. Chapter 625. After a long time, in a hidden cave within a crack in the canyon, there was a fishing net at the entrance. It emitted a faint radiance, then turned into runes and converged. Finally, it fell into Du Xiaofu's hand. The cave wasn't big, but there were 10 people inside. Especially Hao Guan's size, he was as big as 3 people. The 10 people's auras were tightly restrained. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Su Chuyun's gaze landed on the heaven's net that Du Xiaofu had just put away. Although he was rewarded with one in the Manchu, no one would complain about having too many heaven's net. Du Xiaofu's expression wasn't good. He had no choice but to use the heaven's net to protect everyone. Although he could hide his aura and escape from the bronze list experts, the others didn't have the ability to do so. Especially the few peak martial lord youths. After refining the heaven's net for his own use, Du Xiaofu also knew that the heaven's net was extraordinary and had many uses. One of them was the ability to hide one's aura. The effect of concealing one's aura might seem to be of little value, but in reality, it was of great use to cultivators, especially when they were escaping. It was simply an escape treasure. Figures walked out of the cave and entered the canyon. Du Xiaofu immediately left. He definitely didn't want to be with these people. Hao Bian naturally followed by Du Xiaofu's side. His fat body followed gracefully. "Hey, where are you going?" Seeing Du Xiaofu leave, Qiao Yingmeng immediately asked Du Xiaofu. "I saved you guys once. Just treat it as the news you gave me yesterday was too low." Now, you guys go your own way and I'll go mine. Don't follow me anymore. Du Xiaofu waved his hand. If he stayed with these people, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. The sooner he left, the safer he would be. Why you like this? You don't have any feelings at all. Xiao Yingming didn't count. Her beautiful body immediately caught up to Du Xiaofu and blocked in front of Du Xiaofu. Her beautiful body even straightened up, making the curve of her chest protrude even more. I'm not familiar with you guys, where do you get the feelings from? Du Xiaofu only asked Xiao Yingmeng, but his eyes involuntarily landed on the protruding curve in front of him. Upon closer inspection, there seemed to be two small protruding points on the perfectly round lump. They were faintly discernible and naturally alluring. What are you looking at, pervert? Xiao Yingmeng looked at Du Xiaofu and then looked at her chest. She immediately took 2 steps back. She crossed her hands in front of her chest and glared at Du Xiaofu. I didn't expect you. You're so young, you're a pervert shameless. Xiao Yingmeng. I'm a pervert. What did I do? Did I touch you? Did I kiss you? Du Xiaofu was stunned for a moment before he howled. This was definitely an insult to his clean reputation. He hadn't done anything at all, yet he was suddenly called a pervert. You? Xiao Yingmeng fiercely glared at Du Xiaofu. I'm talking business with you. Join us. If we work together, we'll have the power to protect ourselves against the experts on the bronze ranking. I'll be able to protect myself if you don't bring trouble to me. I'm not interested in joining you guys. Du Xiaofu shook his head, avoided Xiao Yingmeng and left. What will it take for you to join us? Xiao Yingmeng didn't give up and once again blocked in front of Du Xiaofu. However, this time she was on guard and didn't dare to block him. She subconsciously covered her chest to prevent that little pervert from taking advantage of her. Du Xiaofu stared at the girl in front of him and suddenly smiled evilly. Why don't you give me a kiss? Kiss me and I'll join you guys. How about it? Shameless, how can you take advantage of someone like that? Judge Hao, who was beside him, couldn't bear to watch any longer as he inwardly muttered. Su Chuyun, who was standing not far away, saw Du Xiaofu's evil smile and his eyes staring at Xiao Yingmeng. Her eyes immediately turned gloomy. You wish. Xiao Yingmeng shouted at Du Xiaofu and almost spat her saliva on Du Xiaofu's face. Forget it if you don't want to kiss me. Then we'll meet again. Don't block me. Du Xiaofu wasn't polite as he turned around and left. He wouldn't do anything that didn't benefit him. This was his principle. This time Xiao Yingmeng didn't continue to block him. Her beautiful face was filled with anger as she angrily stomped her feet. Why don't you give me a kiss and I'll join you guys? Judge Hao's fat face moved closer to Xiao Yingmeng. His eyes narrowed into a straight line and his thick lips slightly pouted. Damn fatty, you're asking for a beating. Xiao Yingmeng was in the middle of it and immediately kicked him without hesitation. Judge Hao let out a miserable shriek as he rubbed his butt. He immediately chased after Du Xiaofu as he muttered, If you don't want to kiss me, then don't kiss me. Why did you kick me? Xiao Yingmeng's beautiful eyes looked at Du Xiaofu's departing figure as she loudly shouted, Du Xiaofu, live. Do you think we can't do it without you? As for you, I accidentally heard that many people on the bronze rankings are looking for you, especially Si Ruofeng and Ji Oming. Do you think you can hide from them? In the last 2 hours of the last day of the Giant Rock Space, everyone will appear at the Giant Rock Plaza. At that time, you and that damn fatty will be out of luck. At that time, how will the two of you be able to resist Si Ruofeng and the other experts on the bronze rankings? If you join us now, we will naturally help you when the time comes. If you don't join us, then forget it. At worst, we'll break up. I'll wait to see how unlucky you are at the Giant Rock Plaza. As Xiao Yingmeng's final words faded, Du Xiaofu's figure suddenly stopped. He looked at Judge Hao who had caught up and asked, Fatty, is what that woman said true or false? I've never heard that the Giant Rock Space would change every day. However, I've heard from the elder that when we leave on the 7th day, it seems like we will appear at the Giant Rock Plaza in the last 2 hours. Judge Hao nodded. He had indeed heard about this from the elder. Is it true? When Du Xiaofu heard this, his index finger scratched his chin as his gaze focused. If what Xiao Yingmeng said was true, then he would indeed be in trouble on the Giant Rock Plaza in the last 2 hours before he left on the 7th day. Moreover, it wouldn't be ordinary trouble. It was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. Du Xiaofu naturally understood this logic. Du Xiaofu was definitely not arrogant enough to think that he could contend against all the experts on the bronze rankings by himself. At the same time, Du Xiaofu also did not want to be trampled by all the people on the bronze rankings on the giant rock plaza. Alright, since you are so sincere in inviting me to join, I will agree to join you. After secretly pondering for a while, Du Xiaofu immediately turned around. His originally ugly face was suddenly filled with a smile as he directly walked towards Qiao Yingming. His hand landed on Qiao Yingming's shoulder as he put his arm around her shoulder like an old friend. He said, "We are now a team. Why don't we properly discuss how to deal with those fellows on the bronze rankings?" Seeing that Du Xiaofu had actually directly placed his hand on Qiao Yingming's shoulder and that Qiao Yingming did not seem to reject him, this caused Su Chuyun's dark gaze to become even darker as a cold glint stealthily flashed across her eyes. This change in attitude is faster than flipping a book. Seeing Du Xiaofu's current warm attitude, Judge Hao was dazed for a moment before he helplessly shook his head. Qiao Yingming did not seem to have expected Du Xiaofu's sudden change in attitude. Her bright eyes glared at Du Xiaofu as she said, "Immediately release your claws or I will not be polite to you. Don't be so fierce. A tomboy will never find a husband. You should be more gentle." Du Xiaofu chuckled. When he saw Qiao Yingming's tightly glared eyes, he immediately withdrew his hand. He did not want to be kicked like Judge Hao. "None of your business, little pervert." Qiao Yingming fiercely glared at Du Xiaofu. "Alright, since we are now together, we should properly discuss how to deal with those experts on the bronze rankings." Mu Jiajia stepped forward. Her delicate and pretty face was filled with a charming smile. "That's right. Congratulations to the 2 of you for joining us." Su Chuyun stepped forward. His blue clothes were clear and his gaze had once again become as gentle as a spring breeze. The corners of his thin lips were slightly raised. He looked noble and unrestrained with a smile on his face. Although he was arrogant, he gave off an extremely amiable aura. At this moment, Su Chuyun's heart was extremely complicated. Looking at Qiao Yingming and Du Xiaofu, his heart could not help but turn gloomy. Qiao Yingming was the target of his pursuit, although he had yet to succeed. However, in Su Chuyun's heart, Qiao Yingming was already his exclusive property and no one could touch her. But just now, that Du Xiaofu was flirting with his exclusive property and even had his arms around her shoulders. Even he had never done such an action before. Especially when Su Chuyun clearly saw that Qiao Yingming did not reject Du Xiaofu's helplessness. This made him feel extremely displeased in his heart. Chapter 626. At this moment, Su Chuyun understood that if Du Xiaofu joined them, it would be a great protection for them. They would be able to protect themselves against the top experts on the bronze ranking. Otherwise, if they met those top experts on the bronze ranking, the consequences would be dire. They were almost robbed of their energy copper talisman. What should we do now? Should we continue or find a place to hide? The young man named Mo Wen stepped forward. He seemed to have a good relationship with Judge Hao. He nodded slightly at Judge Hao. He was handsome and had a noble temperament. Even if he was facing the experts on the bronze list, he would not be afraid of those who were ranked lower. "I think this place should be safe. Ji Ming and the others have already left. Let's stay here and recover." Su Chuyun said. Although their injuries weren't serious, they had used up a lot of energy when fighting with Ji Ming and the others. This was undoubtedly an extremely dangerous thing to do. The others didn't say anything. This team had always been led by Su Chuyun. Naturally, they would listen to her. "We shouldn't stay here for long. Since Ji Ming is a human king on the bronze ranking, he shouldn't be an idiot. If he can't find us, he will definitely think that we are hiding on the way." Du Xiaofu shook his head and said to everyone, "So, we need to go in the opposite direction. At that time, we will find a place to hide and heal your injuries." "I feel that we shouldn't stay here for long." Qiao Yingming thought for a while and nodded. She agreed with Du Xiaofu's words. "I also agree that we should leave this place first." Mo Wen nodded. He supported leaving this canyon first. I'm afraid that we need to leave quickly in case Ji Ming and the others catch up. Mu Jiajia's words had already made her position clear. Let's go. Du Xiaofu nodded. He didn't ask for Su Chuyun's opinion. Profound qi surged out from the soles of his feet and he left. Whoosh whoosh, Judge Hao, Xiao Yingmeng, Mo Wen and Mu Jiajia followed behind. Su Chuyun's gaze turned gloomy as she watched them leave. A faint coldness flashed across her eyes. She waved her hand at the four youths behind her and said, "Let's go." The gloomy sky was getting darker and darker. It seemed like another day was about to pass. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps could be heard in the quiet valley. Then, over 20 figures slowly appeared. There were quite a number of people in this group. Judging from the number of people, they should be newly promoted inner sect disciples. Let's rest here and set off tomorrow morning. This is not a good place to hide. We have more people, so let's go to the front and rest. I'm afraid there might be people on the bronze board ahead. It's not a bad idea to rest here. The 20 or so people slowly approached and seemed to be arguing with each other. 21, that's quite a lot. Suddenly, a faint teasing sound came from the valley. That sound was like a wolf seeing a flock of sheep. And when they heard this voice, the 20 over people immediately stiffened and stopped moving. They looked at the front of the valley, where 10 figures slowly walked out. Among the 10 people, there were 8 males and 2 females, all of them wearing the same badge on their shoulders. As they stared at the 21 newly promoted inner sect disciples walking into the mountain valley, their eyes glowed with a look of ridicule. And at this moment, to the newly promoted inner sect disciples, they were like mice that had seen a cat. It's the experts on the bronze board. Let's work together to fight them. After a short moment of being stunned, everyone immediately took out their spiritual weapons and talisman weapons. Waves of aura surged and runes dazzled. As inner sect disciples of the ancient heaven sect, these disciples were not scared to the point of running away. Instead, they immediately planned to work together to stop them. Little newbies, let your senior brothers train you. Among the 10 experts on the bronze board, one of them had already rushed out. King-level aura swept out and runes were like the sun. The energy swept up a gale and the valley rumbled. Sand and stones flew and countless rocks were shattered and rolled into the sky. Bang bang bang. In an instant, an astonishing battle began. Attacks collided one after another. Palm prints, fists, and talisman weapons collided endlessly, creating clanging sounds. Runes danced in the air and the surrounding boulders were really lifted into the air. Under the huge shockwave, they were shattered. Roar! In a short period of time, someone had already activated his pulse spirit. Beasts roared and their auras fluctuated. Above the pulse spirits of the huge demonic beasts, a boundless energy swept out fiercely. Rumble! The battle was intense. The valley shook and large boulders collapsed. Then, the boulders exploded and turned into dust. Swish! A talisman weapon's attack landed on the ground and the valley's ground was instantly split open. Deep cracks appeared on the ground. The astonishing battle was accompanied by many screams. Many figures were directly blasted to the ground from the sky. The ground shook and rocks flew in all directions. However, this shocking chaotic battle did not last for long before it came to an end. In a short period of time, the valley was already in a mess. It was almost razed to the ground. As for the 21 newly promoted inner sect disciples, they were all lying on the ground miserably. Their noses were bruised and their faces were swollen. Blood dripped from the corners of their mouths. They were definitely trampled. Little newbie, if you don't want to be beaten up again, hand over the energy copper talisman. A youth on the bronze roll laughed proudly. Taking care of these newbies was definitely a pleasure. One by one, the newly promoted inner sect disciples revealed a look of fear. They all began to obediently take out the energy copper talisman from their badges. At this moment, these newly promoted inner sect disciples finally understood that the gap between them and the experts on the bronze roll was too great. Little newbies, goodbye. The 10 experts on the bronze roll snatched the energy copper talismans of the 21 people and left. The 21 inner sect disciples' auras were weak and they were covered in wounds. Some of them had bloodshot eyes and some of them were gritting their teeth. However, they were powerless to fight back. At this moment, these people naturally did not know that in a cave above the valley, there were people fighting. In the cave, the atmosphere was a little tense. There was a feeling of mutual hostility. It's only 10 people. There are only 10 of us. If we can get rid of those 10 fellows on the bronze roll, we will be less threatened. In the cave, Judge Hao's face was filled with anger. There is no need for us to take that risk. Moreover, the 10 of us might not be able to defeat those 10 fellows on the bronze roll. Those disciples who were robbed have nothing to do with us. Why should we take the risk? Su Chuyun looked at Judge Hao. In his long and narrow eyes, there was a faint coldness. He did not dare to do anything to Du Xiaofu, but he did not put Judge Hao in his eyes. Who says we don't have a chance? You just don't dare. If we can get rid of those 10 people just now, we will have one less threat next time. Judge Hao argued. He was very clear that Du Xiaofu was still there. Those 10 people just now were not the top fellows. He was afraid that Du Xiaofu alone would be enough to take down all 10 of them. And just now, it was because of Su Chuyun's obstruction that those 10 people on the bronze roll were able to leave safely. Those 10 people were originally fat meat that had delivered themselves to the door. What big words. Do you think you have the ability to deal with a few people on the bronze roll? Su Chuyun coldly looked at Judge Hao and said in a deep voice, I am the captain. You have to listen to me. Since you have joined my team, then I have the final say. If something happens, can you take responsibility? You are the captain? I did not admit it. Judge Hao was not afraid of Su Chuyun. He looked straight at Su Chuyun and said in a deep voice, If I knew earlier, I would not have joined your team. Then you can leave at any time. Su Chuyun said in a deep voice. He was already regretting letting these two join. Along the way, Xiao Yingmeng had been walking very close to Du Xiaofu. This made Su Chuyun feel more and more unhappy. Especially before, Xiao Yingmeng had directly followed Du Xiaofu. If a period of time passed, Su Chuyun did not dare to imagine. Perhaps at that time, the exclusive property in his heart would become someone else's woman. As Su Chuyun's voice fell, Xiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiejia, Mao Wen and the others' eyes slightly changed. They naturally hoped that Du Xiaofu would join them. During the day, if it was not for Du Xiaofu, they would be in trouble right now. Judge Hao angrily turned his head and suddenly looked at Du Xiaofu who had been sitting cross-legged without saying a word. Big brother, you should say something. Someone let us go. All right, stop arguing. Du Xiaofu stood up and patted Judge Hao's shoulder. Then he looked at everyone in the cave and said, Just now, you all saw it outside. A plate of loose sand will be eaten clean in a moment. Since everyone is a team, then we should act like a team. Naturally, we have to listen to the captain. Otherwise, the next time those guys on the bronze list kill us, it will be us. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Su Chuyun seemed to be somewhat astonished. However, her gaze then darkened as she looked at Judge Hao. Her long and narrow eyes were suffused with a cold intent as she said in a deep voice, Judge Hao, you heard it. If you dare to disobey orders again, don't blame me for being impolite. Du Xiaofu looked at Su Chuyun and said impolitely, I said to listen to the captain, not you. Chapter 627. Su Chuyun's face instantly darkened as she looked at Du Xiaofu. Her expression changed as she raised her head to look at Du Xiaofu. She frowned slightly and asked, Du Xiaofu, what is the meaning of this? Du Xiaofu said calmly, I think we can choose a new captain now. This way, when we have conflicts, it will be easier to resolve them. When the new captain is chosen, no one will have anything to say. Xiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiejia, Mao Wen and the others didn't have any objections after hearing Du Xiaofu's words. Judge Hao even raised his hand in agreement. Su Chuyun looked at the people around her and then stared at Du Xiaofu. In the end, she gritted her teeth and asked, How do you want to choose? It's very simple. Everyone choose yourselves. The one with the most votes will be the captain. Du Xiaofu said slowly. He smiled and said to everyone, First, let me recommend myself. I think I'm quite suitable to be the captain. I support Big Brother to be the captain. Judge Hao immediately raised his hands in agreement. Choosing yourself? How shameless. If that's the case, then I can also choose myself. Su Chuyun looked at Du Xiaofu with disdain. Du Xiaofu didn't care. He said calmly, "Of course you can choose yourself. This isn't against the rules. However, no one said that you can't recommend yourself. If you want face, then you can choose Swirl." "You?" Su Chuyun snorted. She couldn't do anything to Du Xiaofu. However, she didn't fall for Du Xiaofu's trick. "I choose Senior Chu Yun." "I also choose Senior Chu Yun." The four young men behind Su Chuyun lowered their heads and looked at each other. They all chose Su Chuyun. "I have 5 votes. You only have 2. I don't think it's possible for you to be the captain." Su Chuyun's secretly gloomy face revealed a rather gloomy sneer at Du Xiaofu. He already had 5 votes, and there were still Qiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia, and Mo Wen who hadn't voted yet. These 3 were originally with him, so his chances of winning were already set. This Du Xiaofu wanted to steal his limelight and become the captain. He was simply overestimating himself. If you have the support of everyone, then it's fine even if you become the captain. At most, you can just continue to lead us and hide. Du Xiaofu said. Then he looked at Qiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia and Mo Wen and asked, "Is it your turn now?" "I choose Du Xiaofu." Qiao Yingmeng pondered for a moment before taking a step closer to Du Xiaofu. Just now, when Su Chuyun asked Du Xiaofu and Judge how to withdraw, Qiao Yingmeng felt that Su Chuyun wasn't suitable to be the captain. Looking at Qiao Yingmeng standing beside Du Xiaofu, Su Chuyun felt as if her heart was hammered. She felt as if she had been betrayed. Waves of pain filled her heart. Su Chuyun's long and narrow eyes began to suppress the coldness in her eyes. The curve of her mouth gradually became gloomy. "I also choose Du Xiaofu." Mu Jiajia said softly. Then she also stood beside Du Xiaofu. During the assessment, Du Xiaofu was able to take the first place and suppress Feng Xiangyu. His strength was enough to prove it. Su Chuyun's strength wasn't much stronger than Feng Xiangyu's. After considering her strength and what she saw today, Mu Jiajia made her choice. The last one was Mo Wen. He looked at Du Xiaofu and Qiao Yingmeng, Judge Hao and Mu Jiajia. Then he looked at Su Chuyun and the 4 youths beside her and said softly, "I also choose Du Xiaofu." 5 votes against 5 votes. Looks like it's a draw. Du Xiaofu smiled with satisfaction. "A draw. What should we do now?" Su Chuyun said as she looked at Du Xiaofu. The gloominess and coldness in her heart were suppressed like a volcano. This was also a kind of ability. To be able to endure like this was not something that an ordinary person could do. Du Xiaofu smiled. He looked at Su Chuyun and said, "A draw is indeed difficult. Tell me, what should we do?" "Let's fight. The winner will be the leader." Su Chuyun's face sank. She looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "There's no need for us to fight to the death. We don't want to attract the people on the bronze ranking. Moreover, we need to preserve our strength. A direct clash of palms will determine the winner. Do you dare?" Su Chuyun smiled coldly. However, Du Xiaofu had a plan in his heart. He would let Qiao Yingmeng see that he was stronger than Du Xiaofu. Moreover, it was only a competition of 1 palm. Du Xiaofu was a 6-star spirit talisman master and could set up a powerful talisman formation. How could his cultivation in martial arts be so strong? Su Chuyun felt that victory was within her grasp. A direct clash of palms is unfair. Although Du Xiaofu cultivates both the talisman path and the martial path, in terms of martial path, Qiao Yingmeng frowned. She could tell that this question was unfair. A direct clash of palms is a good idea. It's also simple. Let's do it. Du Xiaofu interrupted Qiao Yingmeng's words with a faint smile on his face. He didn't care too much. Someone is looking for a beating, hee. A malicious smile appeared on Judge Hao's face. He was very clear about Du Xiaofu's cultivation in martial arts. Du Xiaofu had fought against 10 cultivators on the bronze list and had won through martial arts. This Su Chuyun originally wanted to take advantage of Du Xiaofu, but he was afraid that she could only cry in a moment. Night had already fallen. Under the dusky night sky, 10 figures flew out from the messy valley. The 21 inner sect disciples who had been robbed not long ago were all dejected. When they suddenly saw people coming, they immediately became alert. They thought that the experts on the bronze ranking had returned. It's Su Chuyun and Xiao Yingmeng. And Mu Jiajia, Judge Hao, Mo1 and the others. Only then did the inner sect disciples who had been robbed see clearly that the people who had appeared were new inner sect disciples like them. Many people were moved. With Su Chuyun and Xiao Yingmeng's fame in the Manchu, they naturally recognized them. In the messy valley, two figures pulled apart the distance and faced each other. They didn't care about the 21 newly promoted inner sect disciples who had been robbed. Boom! The surroundings trembled. Vast and mighty profound qi surged out from Su Chuyun's body. The profound qi light was dazzling and became more and more resplendent. In a short period of time, a profound martial king realm aura swept out and wrapped around her body. A low shout came from Su Chuyun's mouth. Du Xiaofu, I know that you have a strange spiritual soul attack, but I'm afraid it's useless against me. Don't waste time, make your move. Looking at Su Chuyun, whose profound qi light illuminated the valley's night sky, Du Xiaofu was still as calm as ever. But Du Xiaofu was also sighing in his heart. Being a martial king at such a young age, she was indeed powerful. Compared to Lu Kuan in the Stone Dragon Empire a year ago, she wasn't the slightest bit inferior. Su Chuyun's expression became increasingly gloomy when she saw Du Xiaofu's carefree appearance. It was as though she had been humiliated. She formed a seal with her hand and a palm print condensed. The profound energy that lingered around her body fluctuated vigorously, causing the surrounding space to ripple and distort slightly. Boom! Not long after, a palm seal formed in Su Chuyun's palm. A wave of profound qi energy that had almost materialized was suddenly poured into her palm. As the vigorous profound qi poured in, the palm seal suddenly became transparent. Runes flashed and waves of pressure spread out. It looked as if it was covered in layers of flames. Ancient Underworld Seal. Looking at Su Chuyun's move, Xiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia, Mo1 and the others' faces changed slightly. The Ancient Underworld Seal was an extraordinary martial technique in the Ancient Heaven sect. It was extremely powerful. Su Chuyun directly activated the Ancient Underworld Seal, which meant that she had no intention of letting Du Xiaofu go. It didn't look like a spar, but more like she wanted to kill her opponent. It's the Ancient Underworld Seal. Looking at Su Chuyun's move, the miserable new inner sect disciple in the distance was also stunned. Rumble. As the palm seal formed, the pressure spread out. A strange halo wrapped around Su Chuyun, and the surrounding ground trembled. With her feet as the center, cracks appeared on the ground. Du Xiaofu, let's see what you're capable of. Take my palm. Amidst the dazzling light, Su Chuyun's arrogant and cold voice rang out. As a martial king in the Ancient Heaven sect, he was one of the best among his peers in the sect. He had long been recognized as an inner sect disciple, so he definitely had the qualifications to be arrogant. Noisy, just like a woman, Du Xiaofu was helpless. He had waited for a long time, but this fellow still showed no signs of attacking. Bastard, you will pay the price for your words. A cold and gloomy shout rang out from Su Chuyun's mouth. His voice turned dark and cold, as his figure charged towards Du Xiaofu at lightning speed. As the palm seal was sent flying, astonishing energy runes spread from it, flowing as if they had substance. Wherever the palm print passed, the ruins and boulders on the originally messy ground of the valley were instantly turned into dust under the horrified gazes of the crowd. Ancient Underworld Seal. A loud shout suddenly rang out from Su Chuyun's mouth. As the palm seal slammed down, the energy runes suddenly erupted like a flood. Rumble. Energy swept out in all directions, runes shining brightly. As the energy swept out, an incomparably sharp and ear-piercing explosion sounded in the air. The vast energy palm rapidly slammed down, suppressing everything as it directly enveloped Du Xiaofu. Within the range of the palm seal, the ground trembled as cracks continuously erupted. This was no longer a spar, but a killing blow. At this moment, Su Chuyun's attack was actually so terrifying and powerful. Chapter 628. Facing Su Chuyun's attack, Xiao Yingmeng, Mo1, Mu Jiajia and the others all looked at Du Xiaofu with a serious expression. You're asking for it? Only Judge Hao wasn't worried at all. He had seen Du Xiaofu fight against 10 people with his own eyes. How could he defend against Su Chuyun? Judge Hao was more or less clear about Du Xiaofu's temper. He was afraid that the more Su Chuyun attacked, the more miserably he would cry. Du Xiaofu looked ahead. At this moment, the entire space was enveloped by energy rune palms that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. As the target of the attack, Du Xiaofu was naturally able to feel the fierce aura contained within the palm print. Du Xiaofu moved. Golden runes suddenly surged out of his clear eyes. Just as the ancient underworld's seal swept over, a palm print condensed at the same time. Stormy Wave Palm. The Stormy Wave's palm was activated, and a terrifying palm print swept out like a surging wave, and suddenly, it heavily collided with each other. Boom! The two palms collided and a deep sonic boom suddenly sounded out. Runes overflowed into the sky and spread out like fireworks being set off. A wave of spatial ripples immediately spread out like a storm. Finally, it spread out in all directions. Dang dang, Su Chuyun's body trembled violently as she staggered backwards. Every time she took a step back, cracks would appear on the ground beneath her feet. After a few more steps, Su Chuyun let out a muffled groan from her throat. Finally, she stomped her foot on the ground, shattering the rocks under her feet into tiny pieces. Only then did she stabilize her body and retreat. Her right hand was behind her back and her palm was slightly curled into a fist. No one noticed that Su Chuyun's palm was red. Her palm was in pain and her bones felt like they were about to shatter. Du Xiaofu's body trembled slightly. He only took a step back and stabilized his body. His purple robe fluttered slightly. So strong. Xiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia, Mao Wen and the others let out a sigh of relief. However, the three of them were even more shocked. They were shocked because they never expected that Du Xiaofu's cultivation in the martial Dao was actually not inferior to the talisman Dao at all. They were clearly aware of Su Chuyun's strength. You've lost. Du Xiaofu looked at Su Chuyun. He didn't underestimate Su Chuyun's strength. He was even a little surprised. As expected of the ancient heaven sect's human king, Su Chuyun's expression was a little dazed. Perhaps she didn't expect that she would lose to Du Xiaofu. Su Chuyun originally wanted to use this opportunity to suppress Du Xiaofu, to let Xiao Yingmeng knew that he was stronger than Du Xiaofu. Su Chuyun. That he was the one who was worthy of Xiao Yingmeng. However, the current outcome was something that he had never expected. Ha! Su Chuyun's gloomy face twitched. Then, for some unknown reason, he suddenly roared with laughter. However, everyone could feel a kind of gloominess from this laughter. This laughter also caused everyone to frown slightly. Du Xiaofu, you're a man of honor. You're the captain from now on. Su Chuyun's gloomy eyes stared fixedly at Du Xiaofu when his laughter resounded. But you're the captain, so I have the right to leave. Du Xiaofu, we'll meet again. Su Chuyun's gaze swept past Xiao Yingmeng. His heart ached for her, and his gaze became much gloomier. In the end, he said to the four young men who'd been supporting him, "Follow me if you want to. I won't force you if you don't want to." Su Chuyun swept his sleeve when he finished speaking, and profound energy surged beneath his feet. He instantly flashed into the sky and left because he couldn't bring himself to stay here any longer. Swoosh, swoosh. The four young men looked at each other, and in the end, all of them followed after him. They'd been supporting Su Chuyun since the beginning, and they were afraid that Du Xiaofu would deal with them if they stayed. Naturally, they didn't dare to stay. Xiao Yingmeng seemed to want to say something as she looked at Su Chuyun's back. Her red lips slightly parted, but in the end, she only sighed. How ungentlemanly, he can't even afford to lose. Judge Hao sighed. He wasn't surprised by this outcome at all. I never thought that Du Xiaofu would actually defeat Su Chuyun. He's too strong. Du Xiaofu is actually so strong. In the distance, the 21 newly promoted inner sect disciples, who had been plundered miserably, were all extremely shocked at this moment. The human king Su Chuyun, who was one of the best in the ancient heaven sect and had always been an influential figure in the ancient heaven sect, had actually been defeated by Du Xiaofu. This naturally caused them to feel greatly surprised and shocked. If he's gone, then let's go. Du Xiaofu sighed lightly as he gazed at Su Chuyun's back, and then he turned around to look at Mu Jiajia, Mo Wen, and Xiao Yingmeng. It's only the 5 of us now. Do all of you still acknowledge me as your captain? You've won, so you're naturally the captain. Xiao Yingmeng said. You're the strongest, so I have no objections to you being the captain. Mo Wen said softly. I also have no objections. Mu Jiajia nodded with a smile. Alright, from now on, I'm the captain of our team. If there's any danger, I'll do my best to protect each and every one of you. Du Xiaofu looked at the 4 people beside him. His clear eyes suddenly became a little more domineering and sharp. A golden light flashed across his eyes as he said, but since I'm now the leader of our group, I have the final say in everything. Even if you want to doubt my decision, you can only doubt it. You absolutely can't go against my orders. Otherwise, you can leave right now. I won't force you to do so. Hearing Du Xiaofu's domineering words, Xiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia, Mo Wen, and Hao Bian were all surprised. They never thought that Du Xiaofu would have such a side to him. In particular, the domineering and sharp words just now made them feel the aura of a superior person. I have no objections. The 4 of them nodded in agreement. No one had any objections. The corners of Du Xiaofu's mouth curled into a grin when he saw this, and his overbearing and fierce expression instantly turned amiable as he said with a smile, then from now onwards, we're a true team within the giant rock space. Do you want to congratulate you for becoming the captain? Xiao Yingmeng curled her lips as she glanced at Du Xiaofu. She could tell that Du Xiaofu would definitely change his attitude faster than flipping a book. Don't be fooled by this guy's smiling face. If anyone offended this guy, it would be too late for regrets. Hee, there's no need for that. Du Xiaofu chuckled as his gaze suddenly turned towards the 21 miserable-looking new inner sect disciples in front of him, as his eyes secretly flickered. Big brother, what are you planning to do? Seeing Du Xiaofu's expression, Hao Bian immediately stepped forward and asked. You said that you've heard that those guys on the bronze ranking are looking for me? Du Xiaofu's eyes turned as he asked Hao Bian. Of course. Si Ruofeng and the others said that they'll teach you a lesson here. Anyway, they'll make you miserable. Hao Bian curled his lips. Xiao Yingmeng curled her lips as she glared at Du Xiaofu. She gloated and said, not only Si Ruofeng, but Ji Aoming and the others are also looking for you. If you fall into their hands, you'll be finished. Those bastards on the bronze ranking. I didn't offend them, so why are they looking for trouble with me? Du Xiaofu curled his lips with an innocent expression. He then gritted his teeth and said, if they anger me, then don't blame me for being rude to them. How can you be rude? Si Ruofeng, Ji Aoming and the others have long reached the martial king nirvana realm. They're also human king heavenly talents. If they catch you, then you'll be taught a lesson. Xiao Yingmeng gloated. I'm the captain now. Why are you gloating? If I'm taught a lesson, then you'll definitely be taught a lesson even worse. Du Xiaofu unceremoniously rolled his eyes at Xiao Yingmeng. After which, his gaze once again turned towards the 21 inner sect disciples who had been taught a lesson. His jet black eyes rolled around in their sockets as if he was pondering over something. After a while, a smile suddenly rose on Du Xiaofu's lips. He raised his head and looked at the 21 miserable new inner sect disciples who had been robbed. He said, how does it feel to be taught a lesson by those guys on the bronze ranking? It doesn't feel good, right? When the crowd heard Du Xiaofu's words, their faces instantly turned green and red. They were all extraordinary people in the outside world. They were also inner sect disciples in the ancient heaven sect, so they had their own pride. Moreover, they were all young people. It was easy to imagine how they felt after being taught a lesson. When they heard Du Xiaofu's words, they felt as if salt had been sprinkled on their wounds. They all looked at Du Xiaofu. They did not know what Du Xiaofu meant. Was he mocking them on purpose? Tell me, after being taught a lesson, do you want to take revenge? Do you want to take back the energy copper talismans that belong to you? Du Xiaofu looked at the 21 people and said, now that you've been taught a lesson, are you afraid? Do you dare to take revenge? Do you dare to teach those guys on the bronze ranking a lesson? Or do you want to admit defeat with your tails between your legs? Chapter 629. What is he trying to do? Xiao Yingmeng, Mo Wen, and Mu Jiajia were confused when they heard Du Xiaofu's words. The 21 people in the distance looked at each other. Some of their eyes turned red. Who wouldn't be angry after being taught a lesson? However, everyone knew in their hearts that if they wanted to take revenge, their strength was absolutely not enough. A tall and rough young man walked out. He wiped the blood from his mouth with his sleeve. He looked up at Du Xiaofu and said, "Martial Uncle Du Xiaofu, we don't want to be taught a lesson. We also want to take revenge, but we aren't strong enough. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been beaten so badly by them." Martial Uncle? Du Xiaofu was stunned. He was confused. He asked Judge Hao, "Fatty, why did that guy call me Martial Uncle?" Judge Hao was shocked. He asked Du Xiaofu, "You don't know?" "I don't know." Du Xiaofu shook his head. He was confused. Why did that young man call him Martial Uncle? Xiao Yingmeng couldn't take it anymore. She stared at Du Xiaofu and said, "You are Elder Gu Qingyang's disciple, right?" "Of course." "Is there a problem?" Du Xiaofu asked. "Don't you know Elder Gu Qingyang's identity?" Xiao Yingmeng rolled her eyes at Du Xiaofu. She couldn't help but wonder if this bastard was pretending to be dumb. How could he not know his master's identity in the Manchu? "Isn't my master Gu Qingyang an elder in the ancient sky Manchu?" Du Xiaofu replied. Although he knew that his master, Gu Qingyang, had a high status among the elders of the ancient heaven sect, he didn't know much about other things. He had never asked his master before. Elder Gu Qingyang is not only an elder in the Manchu, but he is also the martial uncle of the current sect leader. The sect leader and the elders of the Manchu are of the same generation. Almost all the inner sect disciples are the disciples of the various elders of the Manchu. Therefore, we have to call you martial uncle. Xiao Yingmeng explained to Du Xiaofu helplessly. Since my master is the sect leader's martial uncle, then I am the sect leader's junior. That means I am to the martial uncle. Hee, Du Xiaofu smiled. A smile blossomed on his face. When he thought about how he was the junior brother of the ancient heaven sect's sect master, he immediately felt that happiness had come too suddenly. "Big brother, are you okay?" Seeing Du Xiaofu's silly smile, Judge Hao immediately pulled Du Xiaofu out of his happiness. "I'm fine." Du Xiaofu shook his head. Then he looked at Xiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia, Mo Wen, and Judge Hao with a smile that was not a smile. He looked around and said, "So, do you all have to call me martial uncle as well?" "In your dreams." Xiao Yingmeng rolled her eyes at Du Xiaofu without any trace of politeness. "If you have the ability, then tell the people on the gold and silver rankings to call you martial uncle." "I'm afraid that Yin Mochen, Ji Aoming, and Si Ruofeng on the bronze rankings won't even call you martial uncle. The first thing they'll do when they see you is to teach you a lesson." "Okay, you don't have to call me martial uncle." Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes in disappointment. He thought to himself, although his seniority in the Manchu was quite high, in a sect like the ancient sky sect where strength was respected, just relying on seniority was enough to scare some ordinary disciples. For the disciples on the gold, silver, and bronze rankings, it didn't have much of a deterrent effect. Strength was the most important thing. Cough. After clearing his throat, Du Xiaofu continued to gaze at the 21 miserable-looking new inner sect disciples. His voice was accompanied by some Xian energy as he raised his voice and shouted, "Those fellows on the bronze ranking have gone too far. Just because they are a little stronger than us, they think that they are above everyone else and bully us new disciples. Can we just let them bully us? Let them look down on us and trample on us? We're also disciples of the ancient sky sect. We're also born and raised by our mothers and fathers. We absolutely can't allow anyone to bully us like this. Don't you think so?" Du Xiaofu's voice reverberated throughout the valley. It definitely had an irresistible effect on the disciples who had just been taught a lesson and were suppressing their anger. Instantly, one by one, their gazes turned blood red from Du Xiaofu's incitement. Their gazes shot out sharp glints. "We want revenge. Let them know that we're not to be trifled with. Revenge. Let's get back at them. Let them know that we're not to be trifled with." Fierce shouts followed one after another. One by one, the young men and women who had just been taught a lesson were stirred up. They had the urge to immediately seek revenge on those experts on the bronze rankings. As long as you want revenge, as long as you want to get back at them, that's fine. Follow me. I'll take you to get your revenge. I'll take you to take back the energy bronze talismans that those guys on the bronze rankings stole from you. But there's one condition. If you follow me, then you have to listen to me. We must be united. Only then can we fight against strong enemies. Du Xiaofu raised his arms and shouted at an inappropriate time. We're willing to follow Master Du Xiaofu. Unite as one and take back everything that's ours. Everyone's blood was boiling. Their shouts were endless. Everyone was extremely excited. Some of them had just seen Du Xiaofu's strength. Even the human king, Su Chuyun, had been defeated. At this moment they saw hope. If they could really take back the energy bronze talismans, then they would have a chance to enter the top 128. Okay, everyone, take care of your injuries first. I'll protect you here. When you've recovered a bit, we'll go and seek revenge on those guys. Du Xiaofu chuckled with a smile in his eyes. His clear eyes rolled around in their sockets. This guy, what on earth is he trying to do? Seeing this, Qiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia, and Mo Wen's expressions changed. Hee, they want to play big. Only Judge Hao's face was filled with excitement. Boom, time passed slowly. At midnight, the giant rock space changed again. A rumbling sound resounded, and the earth shook. But not long after, everything returned to normal. At this time, the terrain in front of everyone changed again. Half of the valley in front of them had quietly disappeared. What replaced it was a dense group of rocky peaks. Some of the 21 people were surprised. Then, Du Xiaofu told them that the space would change every day. No wonder it was the same last night. In the dark space, there was silence all around. There was no one nearby. The 21 people continued to take pills, and one by one, they recovered at the fastest speed. Night hung high in the sky. The moon was bright and the stars were few. Towering peaks, steep cliffs, and surging rivers. Standing at a high place under the night sky, the sea of trees was still surging up and down, covering the earth and the sky. In the distance, the mountains were deep and misty. Under the moonlight, it was as if the heaven and earth had become one. Under the moonlight, one could see that in the dark mountains, there were many ancient buildings with exquisite carvings. No one knew how long they had existed, as if they had existed for eternity. Under the moonlight, a beautiful figure stood on a lonely peak. The beautiful figure was about 17 or 18 years old. Her green dress fluttered in the wind, and her long black hair cascaded down from the back of her head, touching her small waist. Under the gentle moonlight, her black hair reflected a faint luster. The outline of her delicate face was extraordinary, as if she was an immortal. Father, brother, I will definitely go and find you. The woman's red lips moved slightly as she murmured. On her extraordinary face, her ethereal eyes were like stars twinkling. The night wind blew gently, and the woman's green dress fluttered in the wind. She was like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world, extraordinary and proud. The mountains were continuous, and the night was boundless. The bright moonlight decorated the night sky, making it quiet, vast, and mysterious. The mountains overlapped, and in the quiet sleep, everything was faintly discernible under the silver veil of the night sky. The ancient courtyard was elegant and simple. No one knew where this was. In front of the courtyard, under an ancient tree, a 17 or 18-year-old girl stood quietly. The woman's exquisite face was as beautiful as a fairy's. Her eyebrows were like emerald feathers, and her skin was as white as snow. Her fine black hair was tied into a simple hairstyle at the back of her head. She wore a tight-fitting green outfit that outlined the exquisite curves of her tall and graceful body. Just one look at her was enough to captivate one's soul. I don't know how you are now. Perhaps you have already forgotten me. On the woman's fairy-like face, a ripple flashed past her eyes. It was difficult to fathom, and it made one's heart flutter. Early in the morning after dawn, the giant rock space was still gloomy and gray. Huff, Du Xiaofu, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes. A faint golden light flickered in his eyes, and then converged into a clear and bright one. A mouthful of turbid air followed his throat and exhaled from his stomach. He slightly raised his head to look at the sky in front of him, and said to the people around him, "Everyone, get ready. We seem to have work to do." Huff! Immediately in the valley, waves of aura awakened. Pairs of tightly shut eyes opened, and a bright light shot out continuously. Whoosh, whoosh, in the air, there were 12 figures flying through the air. 12 extraordinary youths. The oldest was only 24 or 25 years old, and the youngest was only 21 or 22 years old. Chapter 630. But at this moment, the auras of the 12 youths were extremely powerful. If they were placed in the outside world, even in the entire central continent, they would be considered as experts. The speed of the 12 of them wasn't fast. Their eyes were searching for something below. The one in the lead was a young man who looked to be about 22 or 23 years old. He had a tall nose, thin lips, and sword-like eyebrows. On his handsome face, there was a deep gaze. Especially the side of his face, the outline of his face was almost perfect. Senior brother Feng, these rookies seem to be getting better at hiding. In the air, a young man with an extraordinary temperament said to the handsome young man in the lead, "They can't hide. Take your time and you'll find them." The handsome young man who was called Senior Brother Feng smiled indifferently. His eyes suddenly looked at the vast mountain range in front of him. There was a slight fluctuation in his deep gaze as he said with a smile, "Didn't we find them? There are quite a lot of people in front of us. I hope they haven't been taught a lesson. Otherwise, our efforts would have been in vain. In front, teach the rookies a lesson." Behind the handsome young man, the figures behind him were extremely excited. They sped up and flew towards the sky. Amidst the mountain peaks and half of the valley, 26 figures stood in unison at this moment. Many pairs of eyes looked at the sky in front of them. A moment later, 12 figures appeared in front of everyone's eyes as they hurriedly rushed over. "Are you guys ready? Are you going to be bullied by them? Are you going to rise up and fight back? Are you going to be mocked by them? Are you going to be trampled under their feet or protect your dignity? Let them know that we're not to be trifled with." Looking at the 12 figures flying towards them, Du Xiaofu said to the people around him, "Come, let them know that we're not to be trifled with. Let's fight it out with them." Numerous blood-red eyes stared intently at the 12 figures in front of them. In any case, the energy copper talismans on their bodies had already been snatched away. There was nothing to be afraid of anymore since they had nothing to be afraid of. Du Xiaofu smiled and said to the people behind him in an extremely provocative manner, "They took your copper energy talismans. Do you dare to take their copper energy talismans? Or do you dare to tuck your tail between your legs and admit defeat?" Xiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia, and Mo Wen were stunned when they heard Du Xiaofu's words. The others were stunned for a moment. However, all of them seemed to have been provoked. Immediately, their eyes turned blood red. With martial Uncle Du Xiaofu taking the lead, who says we don't dare. Let's snatch it. Rob them. Under Du Xiaofu's incitement, each of the new inner sect disciples felt their blood boil and their eyes turn red. Xiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia, and Mo Wen exchanged glances as they watched Du Xiaofu incite the inner sect disciples. They no longer felt like they were in the ancient heaven sect. Instead, they felt like they had entered a bandit's lair. They really wondered if this brat had been a bandit in the past. He wants to drag people into the water. A smile appeared on Judge Hao's face. Whoosh whoosh, 12 figures landed in front of him. 12 powerful auras swept out, and each of them was extremely powerful. All 12 of them had reached the Martial King realm. A total of 12 Martial King realm cultivators. When Mu Jiajia saw the handsome youth in the middle, her brows furrowed as her expression turned serious. She immediately whispered to Du Xiaofu, "Captain, we're in trouble. Feng Yutong is here. Is that guy very famous?" Du Xiaofu's gaze also landed on the extremely handsome young man at the front. There was a slight ripple in his eyes. The young man's aura was not weak at all. It was vigorous and continuous. He was definitely not an ordinary person. Judge Hao's expression was a little serious at this time. He counted beside Du Xiaofu and said, "Big brother, that Feng Yutong is ranked 10th on the bronze leaderboard. He has the talent of a hero. Even on the silver leaderboard, he can probably be ranked within the top 50. There are two guys behind him who are both ranked within the top 30 on the bronze leaderboard. The 10th on the bronze ranking seems to be at the peak of the mysterious Peak Martial King realm. Du Xiaofu murmured as he looked at Feng Yutong with interest. It seems like we've come in vain. We've already been attacked. The 12 figures landed. The 12 experts on the bronze ranking immediately looked at Du Xiaofu and the others. When they saw that the badge on someone's shoulder was glowing red, they immediately became disappointed. There are also some who haven't been attacked. There are 5 guys who haven't been attacked yet. A blue robe youth said. His aura was slightly fluctuating. It was only below Feng Yutong. That's right. It seems like there are a few outstanding talents. Qiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia, Mo Wen and Judge Hao. I know those guys. A burly youth in a brocade robe looked at Mu Jiajia and the others. He directly ignored Du Xiaofu and laughed loudly, but there are 4 outstanding talents. If we take care of 4 outstanding talents at once, the other teams won't be able to show off. 4 outstanding talents. It seems like this trip was not in vain. Feng Yutong, who was in the middle, revealed a smile on his handsome face. Naturally, he was more interested in teaching a lesson to a genius than teaching an ordinary inner sect disciple a lesson. Did you guys notice? Those guys are strange. They didn't run when they saw us. Among the 12, there was a well-dressed youth who was puzzled. In the past 2 days, the new inner sect disciples they met all ran away in panic when they saw them. However, those rookies in front of them were very strange. None of them showed any signs of running away. They're probably scared silly. Anyway, they can't run away. A short-sleeved youth said indifferently. His aura fluctuated as he rubbed his palms together. He raised his head and said, "In front." Just as the short-sleeved youth opened his mouth to speak, a roar came from the front. The 12 people on the bronze ranking, listen up. If you don't want us to take care of you, hand over the energy bronze talisman. Otherwise, we'll show you what's good for you. Du Xiaofu took a step forward and shouted at Bai Yutong and the others. His voice rumbled and resounded throughout the mountains. When they heard Du Xiaofu's words, the 12 bronze ranking experts who were about to speak were instantly stunned. Something didn't seem right. Who was the one robbing who? Why were those noobs trying to rob them? After being stunned for a short while, Feng Yutong and the other 12 bronze ranking experts could not help but burst into laughter. Is that kid scared silly? The well-dressed youth could not help but laugh. Looks like you guys don't intend to hand over the energy bronze talisman. Du Xiaofu said regretfully. He took a step forward and floated in the air. He looked down at Feng Yutong and waved his fist. Are you Feng Yutong? Hand over the energy bronze talisman. Otherwise, I don't mind beating you up so badly that even your parents won't recognize you. Who is Feng Yutong? He was an outstanding talent of the ancient heaven sect and was ranked in the top 10 of the bronze ranking. Even on the silver ranking, he had the strength to be ranked in the top 50. At this moment, he was being threatened by a rookie. No matter how good his temper was, he could not hold it in. Kid, you're asking for a beating. Feng Yutong shouted coldly. Profound energy gushed out from the soles of his feet. He stomped on the ground and his body shot up into the sky. The blazing profound energy in his body surged, and a majestic blazing energy rushed up. Wherever his figure passed, even the space rippled and the temperature was incomparably hot. In just a short moment, Feng Yutong's figure appeared in front of Du Xiaofu as fast as lightning. The profound energy in his body was dazzling, and his aura was monstrous. Feng Yutong waved his hand and slapped a palm print directly at Du Xiaofu. Under the palm print, the sound of space trembling resounded. At this moment, a malicious smile suddenly appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. Just as Feng Yutong's palm print was about to hit, Du Xiaofu was already prepared. He waved his hand and a monstrous dazzling light spread out from the center of his palm. The mid-grade Dao artifact, Heaven's Net, appeared in his hand. Accompanied by an astonishing energy fluctuation, Heaven's Net turned into a dazzling talisman rune that spread out. It was as if it was going to cover the sky and the sun, directly enveloping a large area of attack in front of it. Boom! As soon as the Heaven's Net appeared, the entire sky trembled with a loud bang. The terrifying energy was like a tsunami, and with a clanging sound wave, it came continuously, immediately enveloping the stunned Feng Yutong. A mighty aura swept out, destroying Feng Yutong's palm print attack. The dazzling talisman runes surged like a vast ocean, instantly drowning a large area of space. It's a mid-grade Dao artifact, not good. Feng Yutong's face changed greatly. It was too late to retreat. The heavens net had already covered the sky. How could Feng Yutong have thought that an unremarkable kid would have a mid-grade Dao artifact waiting for him? More importantly, this purple-robed kid was very extraordinary. The pressure of activating a mid-grade Dao artifact actually made him feel uneasy. Heaven's net has a long history. Suppress. Du Xiaofu did not hold back as he condensed his profound qi into the heaven's net. A terrifying pressure suddenly erupted from the heavenly net that blotted out the sky. Countless talisman runes gushed out, causing the surrounding space to tremble. It seemed to bind and swallow everything. In the end, it directly suppressed and bound Feng Yutong, making it difficult for him to struggle. It was hard to deny that Feng Yutong was strong, and not just strong, but he was unlucky enough to meet Du Xiaofu. 10 chapters in a row, there's more to come. Chapter 631. Swish, the heavenly net spread the light of runes and tightly enveloped Feng Yutong. It was like a fishing net that caught a big fish, and then it fell heavily to the ground. Within the heavenly net, the dazzling runes suppressed Feng Yutong, making it impossible for him to escape. Feng Yutong, who was ranked 10th on the bronze list and was famous in the ancient sky sect, had become a prisoner in a single move. The entire sky was dead silent for a short time. Everyone on both sides was stunned. Who would have thought that Feng Yutong, who was ranked 10th on the bronze list, would be defeated in a single move? That kid is difficult to deal with. Senior brother Feng is bound by the Dao artifact. Quickly help senior brother Feng. It was only a short moment before the remaining 11 people finally came to their senses. A young man in a blue robe, whose aura was second only to Feng Yutong's, suddenly swept out with the mysterious aura of the martial king realm. A terrifying aura soared into the sky like a storm. The young man in the blue robe turned into a flash of lightning and instantly appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. The terrifying aura caused the surrounding space to fluctuate like stormy waves. The young man in the blue robe clenched his 5 fingers and waved his hand. A fist print smashed directly at Du Xiaofu like a meteor. Mysterious Soul Eye. Just as the meteorite-like fist rapidly appeared in front of Du Xiaofu, a strange rune suddenly spread out from Du Xiaofu's eyes. Swish. At this moment, it was as if there were tens of thousands of rays of light that swept out from Du Xiaofu's eyes. The rune light overlapped and finally enveloped the former like a ray of light that instantly appeared. In a short moment, the young man in the blue robe's eyes became dull, and his fist also became sluggish. However, it did not take long for his dull eyes to recover. However, it was too late. Du Xiaofu was already prepared. Back then Yi Xian, who was at the mysterious martial king realm, was also defeated by this move. Although the cultivation of the young man in the blue robe seemed to be slightly stronger than Yi Xian, it was about the same for Du Xiaofu. Bang! A fist print wrapped in golden qi, with an incomparably domineering and fierce aura, directly landed on the former's chest. Rumble! The body of the blue-robed young man violently smashed onto the ground below like a bird with broken wings. A large mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth. His chest and ribs felt as if they had fallen apart. A huge force swept over him, and his internal organs were shaken. He could no longer get up. From an outsider's point of view, Du Xiaofu had only used one move. Another martial emperor realm mystical layer cultivator was knocked down to the ground in a single blow. It was a total trampling. Feng Yutong was captured by Du Xiaofu using a Dao artifact, but that martial king realm mystery level cultivator was seriously injured by Du Xiaofu with just one move. Goo goo, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The 21 newly promoted inner sect disciples, who had been riled up, were now staring so hard that their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. In comparison, the remaining 10 experts on the bronze list were even more shocked and were unable to recover from their shock. Don't just stand there. Quickly take care of those fellows on the bronze list. Charge. Hao Guan took out a pair of large hammers as his aura surged. With a loud shout, he directly pounced towards the 10 people on the bronze list. Xiao Yingmeng and Mo1 were the first to recover from their shock. Their profound qi suddenly surged out, and with a vigorous attack, they also pounced towards the 10 experts on the bronze list. Charge. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. Let them know that we're not to be trifled with. Charge. 21 inner sect disciples with faces full of excitement rushed out one by one. Although their strength and cultivation couldn't be compared to Xiao Yingmeng, Mo1, Hao Guan and the others, they had the advantage in numbers. When they gathered together, their aura was astonishing. Bang bang bang. Instantly, an intense chaotic battle began. The air trembled and the ground shook. Mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. Rune energy soared into the sky. Terrifying energy swept out and flooded a large area. Roar. The 21 newly promoted inner sect disciples who had already been robbed by the bronze list experts knew that their cultivation wasn't enough, so they directly activated their pulse spirits to suppress them. Huge pulse spirit phantoms roared and 5 or 6 pulse spirits surrounded a bronze list expert, making it impossible for the bronze list experts to escape in a short period of time. Not far away, Xiao Yingmeng, Hao Guan, and Mo1 made their moves. Each of them blocked a bronze list expert without any pressure. Quickly take care of these fellows. You guys work together to deal with that purple-robed brat. A young man in a short robe shouted. His gaze was serious as profound qi surged beneath his feet. Runes soared into the sky as he sent a palm filled with vigorous profound qi towards Xiao Yingmeng who was fighting. Let's end this quickly and take care of these fellows. Facing the attack of the young man in a short robe, Xiao Yingmeng shouted. She wasn't afraid in the slightest. Her body was like a vigorous female leopard as she rapidly dodged the opponent's palm. Her delicate hands trembled as the curved blades on her wrists appeared in her hands. Buzz buzz. The two curved blades intersected in the shape of a Tai Chi symbol. Dazzling and sharp runes erupted as they spun out like lightning. With the sound of wind and thunder, they drew a strange whirlpool arc towards the former. Such a strange curved blade attack caused the young man in a short robe's expression to change. It was impossible to guard against it as his expression became more and more unsightly. Motherfucker, I'll take care of you guys today. Hao Guan shouted as he waved his pair of large hammers. A terrifying aura erupted as he forced his opponent to retreat step by step. He was complaining in his heart. One-on-one, who's afraid of who? Mo1 wasn't willing to be outdone. He also held a long spear practitioner weapon in his hand. Mysterious runes on the long spear surged, causing the surrounding space to fluctuate. Profound qi poured into the long spear practitioner weapon in his hand as he attacked his opponent with lightning speed. Go down. Du Xiaofu stood in the air with a rather domineering aura. Golden profound qi swept out from his body as a domineering and sharp aura erupted like a volcano. He directly punched the fist of a young man in a long robe. Bang bang. With a muffled thunder-like sound, the young man in a long robe's fist cracked as his bones were broken. Before he could react, he was punched in the chest again. A huge force swept out. The young man in a long robe felt as if his internal organs were about to be shattered. He spat out large mouthfuls of blood as his body fell down. With golden light overflowing from his body, Du Xiaofu jumped up like a peerless, ferocious beast. Among this group of people who came with the bronze board, the two strongest people had already been beaten down. What else did Du Xiaofu have to fear? Sky-shaking wings. Du Xiaofu shouted as the mysterious runes of the golden runes gushed out layer by layer. His hand directly fell on a strong young man in a black robe and directly slapped his body down, causing blood to spurt out. Thunder Tremor Fist. A thin and short young man took the opportunity to appear behind Du Xiaofu. He fully activated a fist print and a terrifying aura broke out. The runes in front of the fist print surged up to the sky as if they were about to explode the space. Du Xiaofu's expression remained unchanged as if he had eyes on the back of his head. His hair fluttered behind his back as he quickly moved to the side to avoid the blow. Du Xiaofu's figure floated like a god, changing unpredictably. Using the wave-like free steps, Du Xiaofu took the opportunity to appear in front of the young man. Then he waved his hand, and a golden light swept out. A fist print containing a mysterious move fell directly. Bang! With a muffled sound, the young man couldn't resist the punch. The defense on his body was directly destroyed. Then his body fell down from the sky, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. This scene was too shocking. Du Xiaofu rushed into the battlefield like a human-shaped peerless ferocious beast. He swept in all directions, swallowing mountains and rivers, and swept in all directions. Mu, a young expert on the bronze list, was also forced to activate his pulse spirit, the pulse spirit of the martial king realm. A flaming demon ox phantom was like a living creature. It roared and slammed fiercely towards Du Xiaofu. Suddenly, the giant demon ox phantom rushed out. The temperature in the sky was scorching, and the energy was like waves, violently surging. It's a pity that it's not a real ox. Otherwise, I could eat roast beef. Du Xiaofu roared. His long black hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes flickered with golden light. He was domineering and fierce. He raised his hand again and slapped out. A domineering and fierce aura suddenly spread out from Du Xiaofu's body and swept out, causing the space to tremble. Chi-la-la, a pale golden light surged, accompanied by the flickering of pale golden mysterious runes. Layer upon layer, they were like the wings of a rock. Then, under the trembling gaze of the demon cow, this hand ruthlessly slammed into the illusory fiery body of the demon cow at close proximity. Hualala! Before everyone could recover, they heard a low muffled sound. Then, they saw that the blazing demon ox phantom's pulse spirit began to crack. In the end, it was smashed into broken runes by Du Xiaofu. Pucci, the pulse spirit, was directly destroyed. The young man's face turned pale. He was seriously injured and he could not stop vomiting mouthfuls of blood. Get down. Du Xiaofu followed up with a punch that was neither heavy nor light, and the young man's body fell down like a kite with a broken string. Boom! In the end, his body fell heavily to the ground, causing the ground to tremble and cracks to spread. Then, large amounts of blood spurted out from his mouth. 11 consecutive chapters. I've been writing all night. I'm so tired that I don't have the strength to speak. I hope everyone can see Xiao Yu's efforts. On the last day of the month, Xiao Yu is willing to ask for flowers, support, and all support. I especially need flowers. 11 consecutive chapters. Brothers, can you give Xiao Yu a miracle? After staying up all night, Xiao Yu needs to sleep for a few hours. Today's outburst is not over yet. Tonight, Xiao Yu will continue to have outbursts, and it will not stop at this. Calling for all the support, especially the flowers. Thank you to all the readers. Chapter 632. Everyone was shocked. Du Xiaofu was too strong, so strong that it was unimaginable. That terrifying meridian spirit was dispersed by Du Xiaofu. This was simply terrifying and shocking. Charge! It's time for us to take revenge. However, in the midst of the shock, the newly promoted inner sect disciples were undoubtedly stimulated. Each and every one of them attacked the experts on the bronze roll with all their might. At this moment, Du Xiaofu had already taken care of a few experts on the bronze roll, which greatly reduced the pressure on the others. The newly promoted inner sect disciples were now in groups of 7 or 8, controlling 7 or 8 meridian spirit demonic beast phantoms to suppress one of them. 8-directional clear sky array. Mu Jiajia was trying to buy time. A 6-star elementary level talisman array was finally condensed. 21 array flags flew out and turned into a powerful talisman array that covered the sky. It directly trapped the 2 bronze rank youths inside the talisman array. Golden Xian Qi enveloped Du Xiaofu's entire body in a golden radiance. The golden radiance was dazzling like the sun. A domineering aura swept across. Du Xiaofu once again rushed into the battle circle like a ferocious beast. The domineering aura swept across, causing the entire area to tremble. Bang! An unlucky young expert on the bronze roll was also sent flying by Du Xiaofu's unceremonious slap. Du Xiaofu didn't hold back. He had his own plans. Those experts on the bronze roll were looking for trouble with him everywhere. If they were to arrive at the giant rock plaza, he would be the unlucky one. Therefore, he might as well take advantage of the opportunity to defeat them one by one. It would be better than being unlucky in the giant rock plaza. Therefore, Du Xiaofu made up his mind. Since there were people looking for trouble with him, he couldn't just stay idle. He would gain the upper hand by striking first, and those who strike later would suffer. Boom! Another young expert on the bronze roll was suppressed by 7 or 8 newly promoted inner sect disciples' meridian spirit demonic beast. Du Xiaofu directly rushed into the battle circle and punched him until he spurted out blood. His defense was destroyed, and he was besieged by the newly promoted inner sect disciples. He was in an even more miserable state. He who strikes first gains the advantage, and he who strikes last suffers. Du Xiaofu roared as golden light erupted from his body. His long hair danced in the wind, and golden runes flickered in his eyes. He charged into the battle and heavily injured the young experts on the bronze rankings. Rumble! Du Xiaofu, who was like a peerless, ferocious beast, charged forward. Resplendent golden light flooded a large area and swept out in all directions, shocking everyone. Each and every one of those unlucky bronze rankers who were caught in the crossfire of Du Xiaofu's attacks would definitely not have a good ending. Du Xiaofu's strength was too strong, so strong that it shocked everyone on the bronze board. Was that purple-robe youth really a newly promoted inner sect disciple? A great battle shook the mountains, as if the heavens were falling and the earth was splitting. However, it didn't last for long. With Du Xiaofu's forceful intervention, the final result was obvious. In the end, the bodies of the 11 youths fell to the ground. All of them were dripping with blood. It was a tragic sight. There was also Feng Yutong, who was suppressed by the heavenly net. He was also lying on the ground and looking at the scenery. Feng Yutong's eyes were still staring at the scene that just happened. He still hadn't recovered from his shock. Judge Hao, Qiao Yingmeng, Mo Wen, and Mu Jiejia had consumed some of their energy, but it wasn't a big deal. The faces of the 21 newly promoted inner sect disciples were all pale. Some of them had sustained injuries on top of their injuries and had expended a lot of energy. However, when they saw the 12 experts on the bronze roll lying on the ground, and one of them was in such a terrible state, they were all extremely excited as they cried out in excitement. This guy, is he really human? Qiao Yingmeng stared at Du Xiaofu from the side. It could be said that the 12 bronze rankers were all dealt with by Du Xiaofu. The only useful thing they did was to delay the bronze rankers for him. In the end, it was that guy who intervened and dealt with them one by one. Hand over the energy bronze talisman. Du Xiaofu looked at the bloody and miserable bronze rankers on the ground and shouted like a bandit. Is he really going to steal from the bronze rankers? Qiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiejia, and Mo Wen looked at each other in dismay. At this time, they truly believed that Du Xiaofu wasn't joking. This guy really wanted to steal from the bronze rankers. In your dreams? One of the youths who was hit by Du Xiaofu's sky-shaking wings gritted his teeth and coldly shouted. Being beaten up by a group of newbies was already a great humiliation. How could he endure being robbed of his bronze rankers? That was simply a great humiliation. How could he go out and meet people in the future? It doesn't matter. Not handing over the bronze rankers is the right thing to do. After sealing them, take off their clothes and throw them here. When they appear in the giant rock plaza, they will definitely become famous. Who knows, they might even become famous in the central state. Judge Hao laughed complacently. He wasn't afraid that these guys wouldn't obediently hand over the bronze rankers. Despicable, shameless. Hearing Judge Hao's words, Qiao Yingmeng couldn't help but roll her eyes. It's not very elegant. Mu Jiejia also looked at Judge Hao and sighed. This method, they were girls. Naturally, it wasn't easy for them to do it. This move is, Judge Hao was stunned. Then he wanted to refute. This idea wasn't his at all. God knew that the savage and shameless guy in front of him yesterday had already stripped a guy on the bronze rankers. What are you? Shameless, despicable. Du Xiaofu immediately interrupted Judge Hao's words and said, You can even think of such a despicable and shameless idea. It's enough to show that you are a shameless and despicable person. I really misjudged you. Big brother, you? Heavens, I'm being wronged. Judge Hao suddenly cried out. He wanted to cry but had no tears. He felt that he was being wronged more than Doi. This idea was clearly thought of by that savage and shameless guy, but now it was pushed onto him. Judge Hao felt wronged. He looked at Xiao Yingmeng and Mu Jiajia, who were looking at him with disdain. He was afraid that in their hearts he would no longer have any image and integrity. If you have the ability, why don't you think of a noble idea to make them obediently hand over the energy copper talisman to you? Judge Hao shouted at Du Xiaofu, feeling wronged. I want to see what noble idea you can come up with. Du Xiaofu glanced at Judge Hao with disdain. Then he looked at the 11 miserable and bloody experts on the bronze rankers on the ground and said, I think that if they don't hand over the energy copper talisman, we can seal them. Then, let them be together, hand in hand, mouth to mouth, and look at each other with affection. This is also the purpose of our ancient heaven sect's disciples, to love each other. Captain's idea is much more elegant. Mu Jiajia immediately nodded in agreement. Not bad, this seems quite fun. I really want to see them holding hands, kissing each other, looking at each other affectionately. Xiao Yingming's interest was immediately piqued. She couldn't wait to start fiddling with it. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the expressions of the 11 extraordinary youths on the bronze rankers became extremely ugly. Letting them hold hands, mouth to mouth, and look at each other with affection was better than directly killing them. If this spread out, they wouldn't have any face to stay in the central continent. You dare, brat, if you dare to touch us, we won't let you off. Someone couldn't help but shout. It was precisely because he was afraid that he shouted. I've already taken care of you, do you think I won't dare to? Du Xiaofu howled. He was extremely excited and didn't have the slightest bit of fear. I'll hand over the bronze energy talisman. If you dare to touch us, we won't let you off even to the ends of the earth. A miserable-looking youth wearing a blue robe shouted. He was willing to hand over the bronze energy talisman. He was ranked in the top 30 of the bronze rankers, but if this brat really made them look like they were in love with each other, mouth to mouth and hand to hand, then he wouldn't be able to face anyone in the future. If you're willing to hand over the bronze energy talisman, then I naturally won't touch you. I only want the bronze energy talisman, but don't provoke me. If you provoke me, then I can do anything. Du Xiaofu waved his fists and said, Amazing, really amazing. Judge Hao looked at Du Xiaofu. He was now prostrating himself in admiration. Mouth to mouth, loving each other. Evil, this was too evil. Judge Hao discovered that not only was this Du Xiaofu cruel and shameless, he was also despicable. Whoever offended him might even have their ancestral graves dug out. Subsequently, although the 11 older youths on the bronze rankers were furious, under the threat of Du Xiaofu, they could only obediently hand over all the bronze energy talismans in their badges. They were robbed clean, and even the last bronze energy talisman was not kept. Du Xiaofu directly distributed the bronze energy talismans to the 20 inner sect disciples who had already been robbed. Each of them received 20 bronze energy talismans. Martial Uncle Du is mighty. Seeing this, the 21 newly promoted inner sect disciples cheered excitedly. Each of the 11 experts on the bronze rankers had more than 100 bronze energy talismans in their hands. In total, they had more than 1,000 bronze energy talismans. Especially the stronger youths on the bronze rankers, they had more than 200 bronze energy talismans. Mo Wen, Mu Jiajia, Judge Hao, and Xiao Yingmeng each received 150 bronze energy talismans from Du Xiaofu. One bronze energy talisman could last for 10 days in the ancient bronze space. This was equivalent to 2 years' worth of bronze energy talismans. They wouldn't have to worry about the bronze energy talismans for 2 years in the ancient bronze space. Swallowing their saliva, Xiao Yingmeng, Mu Jiajia, and Mo Wen also silently put away the 150 bronze energy talismans. They simply couldn't refuse. This time, we've been dragged into the water. Judge Hao chuckled. Without a doubt, Xiao Yingmeng, Mo Wen, and Mu Jiajia were dragged into the water step by Du Xiaofu. Thank you to book friend XXD1201 for tipping book 100-135355. Book friend 38264 for tipping book 3776 chasing wave coins. Beautiful vermilion bird which tipping book 10,000 chasing wave coins. My account still has another 20,000 chasing wave coins. I don't know which book friend gave me this generous reward. Little you can't see the record. Little you continues to write. Today's explosion, last 4 hours, begging for flowers. Chapter 633. Let senior brother Feng go. A tall and skinny young man roared at Du Xiaofu from the group of extraordinary youths, whose 11 energy copper talismans had been completely looted. However, there was clearly a lingering fear in his eyes as he looked at Du Xiaofu with a fearful expression. Can you hand over your energy copper talismans? Du Xiaofu ignored the young man and went to Feng Yutong, who was being suppressed by the heavenly net. I'll give you the energy copper talismans. I admit defeat. Feng Yutong clenched his teeth. How could he not see the current situation? This time, his team had been thoroughly defeated. Not only had they been trampled by a group of rookies, even their energy copper talismans had been stolen. This was simply a disgrace. However, in the face of absolute strength, they had no other choice. Du Xiaofu smiled in satisfaction. He formed a seal with his hand and it turned into rune energy. It passed through the heavenly net and landed on Feng Yutong's body. Feng Yutong spat out a mouthful of blood as the rune energy landed on him. His complexion turned deathly pale. Brat, what did you do to senior brother Feng? A young man shouted. The eyes of the crowd trembled with rage, but no one dared to step forward to stop Du Xiaofu. Don't worry, it won't take his life. It's just a small trick. He won't be able to use his celestial qi for 7 days. If he uses his celestial qi within 7 days, his blood will flow in reverse and his celestial qi will become chaotic. If it's light, he will go crazy. If it's serious, his spirit gate will explode, Du Xiaofu said to everyone. It was the last hour of the last day in the giant rock space. Everyone would appear at the giant rock plaza. Du Xiaofu had no choice but to do this in order to prevent everyone on the bronze roll from ganging up on him. If he sealed Feng Yutong's celestial qi, he wouldn't be able to do anything to him. After Du Xiaofu merged with the ancient barren space, there were many tricks in the ancient barren space. When Du Xiaofu was free, he studied some of them. However, he never found a suitable opportunity to use them. Hearing this, Feng Yutong and the other 12 people were furious. However, they were like fish on a chopping board. They couldn't do anything to Du Xiaofu. This guy is sinister. Qiao Yingmeng curled her lips and cursed. It wasn't hard for everyone to guess why Du Xiaofu sealed Feng Yutong's celestial qi. It was probably to have one less powerful opponent in the giant rock plaza. Brat, good move. Feng Yutong, admit defeat. Can you tell me who defeated me? Feng Yutong's, his eyes he's. Well said, I won't change my name. Your martial uncle, Du Xiaofu, is also here. Du Xiaofu chuckled. He put away the heavenly net and let Feng Yutong go. He said shamelessly, actually, it's not shameful for you to be defeated by your martial uncle. You're Du Xiaofu. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the expressions of the youths on the bronze roll became interesting. They were still looking for the legendary Du Xiaofu. Who knew that they would be beaten up so miserably by Du Xiaofu? After a short moment, Du Xiaofu and the others swaggered off after putting away the over 400 copper energy talismans in Feng Yutong's badge. Within the messy mountain range, Feng Yutong and the rest of the 12 were supporting each other in a dispirited manner. They watched as the group of people left. It was as if they could not believe that the 12 people on the copper ranking had actually been trampled by a group of rookies. Moreover, the energy copper talismans on their bodies had been completely stolen. Find those fellows on the bronze roll. Take revenge if you have a grudge. Take revenge if you have a grudge. Screw them. Martial Uncle Du is mighty. Loud shouts resounded in the gloomy space. The inner sect disciples, who had not only regained their bronze energy talismans, but had also doubled their bronze energy talismans. After robbing all the experts on the bronze roll and beating up a group of them, all the new inner sect disciples no longer feared the bronze roll experts. They no longer hid like before, but instead yelled and howled as they searched everywhere for the bronze roll experts. This feeling was like a large group of rats on the streets, howling and yelling that they wanted to beat up a cat. As the group passed by, they encountered many inner sect disciples who had already been robbed. When they saw this group of people howling and howling, they were all flabbergasted. These inner sect disciples knew each other. They had heard that Du Xiaofu had led the group to beat up the 10th place on the bronze roll, Feng Yutong's group, and even snatched back their bronze energy talismans. The eyes of the inner sect disciples who had been robbed lit up as though they had seen a glimmer of hope. They begged Du Xiaofu to bring them along as well. They wanted to seek revenge on the people on the bronze leaderboard. Du Xiaofu naturally did not refuse. Thus, by afternoon, the large group had already reached a total of 120 people. There were even 2 groups of new inner sect disciples who had not been found by the bronze roll experts. However, when they saw that Du Xiaofu's group was so large that even Mu Jiejie, Qiao Yingmeng, Mo Wen, Judge Hao and other talents were among them, they immediately begged to join. Du Xiaofu did not have many requirements for these people who wanted to join, but it was not like he did not have any requirements. The first thing was that they had to listen to him. Otherwise, they could not blame him for being rude. At dusk, the gloomy and overcast space began to gradually darken. Amidst the cries of this group of people, a group of experts on the bronze ranking was finally attracted. There were a total of 9 people in the bronze roll team, 2 women and 7 men. Their auras were not ordinary and they were all like dragons and phoenixes among men. When these 9 bronze roll experts saw a large group of new rookies, they were secretly happy that they had reaped a great harvest. Following that, an unforgettable scene occurred. It's the fellows on the bronze roll, let's go. We finally caught them, fuck them. Don't be polite, we'll take revenge if we have a grudge. In an instant, over 100 newly promoted inner sect disciples covered the skies as they directly pounced towards the 9 shocked people on the bronze board. Channel spirits were directly activated and practitioner weapons were used. Energy attacks filled the sky and swept in all directions. Roar, rumble. In an instant, the earth and mountains shook and space trembled as muffled sounds like thunder. The scene of over 100 people directly charging towards the 9 bronze roll experts and attacking them with all their might was too shocking. It was something that the 9 bronze roll experts would never forget for the rest of their lives. The final outcome was obvious. With the savage Du Xiaofu, Mu Jiejie, Qiao Yingmeng, Mo Wen and Judge Hao, the 9 bronze roll experts, 7 men and 2 women, were miserably lying on the messy rocky ground in a short period of time. The miserable 9 people's gazes trembled and they could not regain their senses. They even thought that they were dreaming. Of course, their final outcome was exactly the same as the bronze roll experts before them. These 9 bronze roll experts had over 1,000 copper energy talismans on them. Du Xiaofu took 200 of them without hesitation. Qiao Yingmeng, Hao Guan, Mu Jiejie, and Mo Wen each received 100 talismans with satisfaction. The remaining 500 talismans were divided equally among the 120 inner sect disciples, each receiving 4 or 5 energy copper talismans. At this moment, to the inner sect disciples, the amount of copper energy talismans they received was secondary. The most important thing was that they were extremely happy. As they watched the practitioners on the bronze ranking being ravaged one by one, these newly promoted inner sect disciples were all excited and agitated. In the ancient sky sect, they had never heard of new inner sect disciples trampling on the bronze roll experts like this. They were definitely the first batch. This was a record and history. All of them felt a deep sense of pride in their hearts. Martial Uncle Du is mighty. Good job, Martial Uncle Du. Shouts resounded through the air. At this moment, Du Xiaofu had become the soul of this group of inner sect disciples. He had become their god. Bandit leader. Qiao Yingmeng glanced at Du Xiaofu, who was surrounded by everyone's waving arms and shouting. On her charming face, there were some ripples in her bright eyes. Her delicate red lips slightly opened as she murmured with a smile, "But this is quite fun." At night, the peaks stood tall and surrounded by mountains. The bright moon hung in the sky and the mountain peaks were surrounded by clouds and mist. Sect Master, it's really a mess. In the ancient and quiet side hall, Protector Hao looked at the green-clothed, black-haired Sima Ta Xing. He swallowed his saliva and said, that kid Du Xiaofu has gathered more than 100 disciples. In just one day, he got rid of another 2 groups of bronze roll disciples. Not only did he trample on those bronze roll disciples, he also looted all their energy copper talismans. Feng Yutong, who was ranked 10th on the bronze roll, was even dealt with by that kid Du Xiaofu with the Manchues Heaven's Net. Hearing this, Sima Ta Xing, who was holding a cup of tea in his mouth, almost spat it out. Then, a smile slowly appeared on his handsome face as he said, "Interesting, it's getting more and more interesting. Sect Master, if that kid Du Xiaofu continues to cause trouble like this, I'm afraid that the giant rock space will really be in chaos." Little girl Muhan's group also dealt with a group of bronze roll disciples today, but they didn't snatch the energy copper talismans from the bronze roll disciples. Protector Hao sighed and said helplessly, there are a total of 10 groups of bronze roll disciples. Now, 5 of them have been dealt with, and only half of them are left. It doesn't matter. Tell the 3rd elder not to interfere. Sima Ta Xing smiled and said, in addition, seal off the news. For the time being, don't let the other elders know about the situation inside. Protector Hao was helpless and could only leave in the end. After Protector Hao left, Sima Ta Xing slightly raised his head and gently placed the teacup in his hand on the table. His eyes narrowed as he smiled and muttered, "It's been a long time since the ancient sky sect has been so lively." Chapter 634. In the giant rock space, at midnight, the space changed again. Du Xiaofu's mighty group of people gathered on top of a mountain peak so that they wouldn't be separated due to spatial changes when the time came. Rumble, the earth shook, the mountain shook, and the space trembled. This huge space was like a living maze that could change at any time. In a short period of time, everyone's surroundings changed again. In the dark night, everyone continued to heal their injuries. The next morning, auras woke up one by one. They were all shouting to find the people on the bronze board to settle the score. More than 100 people set off in a grandiose manner. They were all excited as they searched everywhere for the people on the bronze board. At this moment, the position of the prey and the hunter had started to change. Wherever this large group of people passed by, many of the newly promoted inner sect disciples who had been robbed and those who had not yet been robbed would join them. Although they did not meet any experts on the bronze board for the whole day, the group had grown to more than 200 people by dusk. It was absolutely majestic. So. At dusk, under the dusk sky, more than 10 people were flying in the air in the vast Rocky Mountain range. You can't run away, little rookies. Hand over the energy bronze talisman, or else you will be crying for your parents. Not far behind these 10 people, there were 8 figures flying in the air. They were even faster and their auras were more vigorous. It looked like they were about to catch up. Fatty, hurry and help. The 10 people running in front were pale and had a grave expression. Suddenly, they saw a large group of people in front of them. Some of them seemed to be familiar with Judge Hao. They immediately landed as if they had met their savior. The ones who landed were 11 young men and a pretty girl wearing a light-colored long dress. The young man in front did not have an outstanding appearance, but his temperament was extraordinary. His eyes were deep and spirited. He wore a light blue long robe and was about 22 or 23 years old. He had short hair and an extremely muscular body. Running Bull, why are you here? Judge Hao recognized this young man and immediately went forward. After the youth called Ben Nyo landed, his gaze immediately fell on the 200 people behind Judge Hao. Then he looked at Mu Jiajia, M. Owen, and Xiao Yingmeng with a puzzled expression. Hearing Judge Hao's words, the young man immediately regained his senses. His expression became serious as he said to Judge Hao, "Behind us is Su Qing, who is on the bronze ranking. Help me block him. You have more people, so if we work together, we might have a chance." The 11th on the bronze roll, Su Qing? Hearing this, Hao Bian's gaze immediately focused on the 8 figures that were rushing over from not far away. After that, his eyes narrowed into a line and were filled with excitement, as if he had won a prize. That's right. Su Qing, ranked 11th on the bronze leaderboard, help me fend them off. I owe you a favor. The youth called Benyu said to Judge Hao. If Judge Hao, Mu Jiajia, Qiao Yingmeng, Mo1 and the others joined in, they would indeed have a chance to resist Su Qing, who was ranked 11th on the bronze rankings. Judge Hao did not immediately return to Benyu. Instead, he looked at Du Xiaofu and said, Big brother, in front of us is Su Qing, ranked 11th on the bronze roll. Do you want to fight? Du Xiaofu's eyes slightly raised as he looked at the 8 figures that had arrived in the sky in a few flashes. His lips curled into a smile as he raised his arm and shouted to the people behind him, There is a group of people on the bronze roll in front of us. What do you guys say? Do you want to fight? Fight his grandmother. Marshal Uncle Du, fight him. Wave after wave of cheers and shouts resounded through the sky. The emotions of the crowd surged, and all of them were inexplicably excited. This was especially true for the 120 inner sect disciples who had already fought with the first group of experts on the bronze roll yesterday. At this moment, they did not even put those experts on the bronze roll in their eyes. With Du Xiaofu around, they were not afraid at all. At this moment, hearing the excited shouts, the group called Benyu and the others were all dumbfounded. They all secretly wondered if those fellows had been provoked or had taken stimulants. Not only did they not hide when they saw the experts on the bronze roll, they even howled like a cat that had seen a mouse. The youth on the 8 bronze rolls stood in the air with a puzzled gaze. A large group of newly promoted inner sect disciples had appeared in front of him. After hearing the shouts, he frowned slightly and revealed a puzzled expression. Senior brother Su, something seems to be wrong. The auras of the 8 youths were extraordinary. A youth in a yellow robe asked the youth in front. The youth in front looked to be around 23 or 24 years old. His long hair was slightly curly and his eyebrows were long like willows. His body was like a jade tree and he was extremely extraordinary. His eyes looked at the group of newly promoted inner sect disciples in front of him as he frowned slightly. There were more than 200 newly promoted inner sect disciples and more than 100 of them had energy copper talismans in their badges. Although the 8 of them were experts on the bronze roll, they definitely did not have much chance of winning against 200 inner sect disciples. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. After dealing with the strongest few, it will be easy. The youth who was called Senior Brother Su had a slight smile on his face. After dealing with the strongest few, everything would be easy. After all, he could not just stand by and do nothing when he saw a bunch of rookies. 200 rookies was a great harvest. In the future, if news of the 8 of them dealing with 200 rookies spread out, it would be enough to make him proud. Alright, let's deal with the strongest few first. After suppressing them with all our might, it will be easy. Those rookies will not be able to overturn the heavens. Hearing Senior Brother Su's words, the 7 youths behind him smiled and nodded. They rubbed their palms together and were eager to give it a try. Let's go. Be careful of the talisman masters setting up talisman arrays. The youth with the surname Su lightly shouted. His profound chi surged and he immediately charged forward. Let's deal with the strongest first. At this moment, the youths behind him all rushed out. Waves of vast auras swept through the sky and filled the world with smoke. At this moment, the 8 of them did not know that their demons were about to begin. Everyone has been searching for a day and we finally met a group. Let's do it. At the same time, Du Xiaofu looked at the group of excited inner sect disciples behind him and chuckled. The group of people on the bronze roll in front of him did not pose much of a threat. Charge! Instantly, all of the inner sect disciples rushed out in a frenzy under Du Xiaofu's wave of his arm. Waves of people rushed out, their profound chi surging, their practitioner weapons in hand, their energy condensed, shocking everyone to the core. Roar! Some of the experienced inner sect disciples immediately activated their meridian spirits. The enormous meridian spirits that blotted out the sky and covered the earth attacked the 8 people on the bronze roll. The roars of beasts shook the heavens. The runes were dazzling and the power trembled. Chi 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 chi. A large number of practitioner weapons were activated. Saber light, sword shadows, and spear light filled the air. The scene of 200 inner sect disciples attacking 8 people at the same time could only be described with imagination. The 8 youths on the bronze roll had a huge change in their expressions. They originally wanted to capture the leader first. Who knew that before they even started, their opponents had already made the first move. Hundreds of people pounced on them at the same time, making them tremble in fear. Rumble, in the blink of an eye, the attacks collided. In the dusky space, a blazing light blossomed. It was as if it wanted to light up the entire space. Boundless rune energy swept out and muffled thunder resounded. Everyone was fiercely fighting. Dozens of newly promoted inner sect disciples were attacking a single youth on the bronze roll. Furthermore, they were using practitioner weapons and meridian spirits. They would definitely not be at a disadvantage. And this kind of explosive attack made the battle extremely terrifying and intense. Damn it, let's teach these rookies a lesson. A young man in luxurious clothes shouted loudly as he swept his sleeve, causing talisman markings to erupt and monstrous profound energy to resound. Rumbling sounds resounded as it directly blasted a few people flying, and it caused a few of them to spit out blood. This youth in luxurious clothes was very strong. It seemed that he was only weaker than the leader, Su Qing. I'll deal with you. Judge Hao shouted. He carried a pair of large hammers and practitioner weapons and rolled down. He's very strong. Let's work together to suppress him. Emowen came to help. His long spear practitioner weapon swept out. Runes surged and a sharp aura swept out. Rumble. At this moment, Du Xiaofu had already aimed at the leader, Su Qing. The two of them had unknowingly clashed with each other at lightning speed. During the collision, the intense shockwaves caused the air to undulate like a vast ocean. Light swept out in all directions and flooded a large area. Dang dang. Under the collision, they separated immediately. Su Qing's figure directly staggered back. His eyes were filled with shock. The purple-robed youth was actually not weaker than him. However, it was only a short moment of shock. Su Qing was an expert ranked 11th on the bronze roll. Regardless of battle techniques or strength, he was the best among his peers. He was definitely worthy of his reputation. He immediately attacked again. A king-level martial skill was displayed. It covered the sky and covered the earth around Du Xiaofu. Profound soul eyes. Sky-shaking wings. Heaven's net. Du Xiaofu attacked. He roared like a peerless ferocious beast. Under Du Xiaofu's profound soul eyes, sky-shaking wings and the middle-grade Dao artifact, Heaven's Net, Su Qing's final outcome was obvious. Su Qing, who was ranked 11th on the bronze roll, had just attacked and was directly met with a miserable end. On the ground, the 12 people called Ben Nyo were all stunned on the ground. As they stared at the astonishing battle in the sky, Ben Nyo and the rest felt as if they were in a dream. How was this a copper list practitioner robbing a newly promoted inner sect disciple? It was simply a group of newly promoted inner sect disciples beating up a copper list practitioner. Chapter 635. The eyes of Running Bull and the rest trembled, especially the purple-robed youth. He was extremely powerful, like a real ferocious beast in human form, looking down on everyone. After Su Qing was captured, the purple-robed young man directly charged into the battle circle. With an unstoppable force, he blasted the other 2 bronze list experts to the ground one after another, causing them to be unable to climb back up. A white-robed youth hurriedly activated his pulse spirit, which was a demonic beast on the heavenly beast list. But in the end, in front of the purple-robed young man, the beast spirit on the heavenly beast ranking was dispersed with a single slap. The white-robed young man's fate was also very miserable. Then, under Running Bull's trembling eyes, he saw the purple-robed youth severely injure 4 bronze list experts. Hao Guan and Emowen joined forces, 2 heroes suppressed them, and with the help of the Pulse Spirit Talisman weapon, they also severely injured an opponent. Xiao Yingmeng and Mu Jiajia, the 2 heroes, one used a talisman array, the other a talisman weapon, and their opponents were also restrained on the spot. The last 2 bronze roll elites were suppressed by the other inner sect disciples. With 100 inner sect disciples suppressing 1 bronze roll elite, No matter how strong that bronze role elite was, he could not withstand such suppression. In the end, he was captured with hatred and was brutally ravaged. The last two bronze list youths wanted to cry, but no tears came out. They were two martial kings, but they were captured alive by a group of martial marquis realm cultivators. This was too humiliating. However, with over 200 aggressive martial marquis realm cultivators besieging them, they could only end up like this. That's Du Xiaofu. I saw him at the Sky Martial Square, the Du Xiaofu who defeated Yi Xian in one move. It's him. I heard that he's the new disciple of Elder Gu Qingyang. Behind Running Bull, someone recognized Du Xiaofu. He's Du Xiaofu. Running Bull was shocked. He did not go to the Sky Martial Square, but he heard about it. Therefore, he doubted Du Xiaofu's strength and did not believe the rumors. Huff huff, however, Running Bull could only suck in a breath of cold air. After the battle ended, the sky was already dark. Then, everyone skillfully looted the copper energy talismans. With Du Xiaofu and Judge Hao present, they were not afraid that the people on the bronze board would not obediently hand over the copper energy talismans. In the end, everyone divided the loot. A total of 1,100 copper energy talismans were found on the bodies of Su Qing and the other 8 people. Du Xiaofu took 200, while Mu Jiejie, Judge Hao, Mo Wen, and Xiaoying Meng each took 80. Du Xiaofu distributed the remaining 700-plus energy copper talismans to the 200-plus inner sect disciples, giving each of them 3 talismans. As for Benyu and the others, they naturally didn't get a single one. They could only watch from the side as the others divided the energy copper talismans. In the hearts of Running Bull and the others, they never thought that the energy copper talismans of the disciples on the bronze board could be plundered by them. Du Xiaofu alone dealt with 4 experts on the bronze board, but only took 200 energy copper talismans. This made the 200 inner sect disciples support Du Xiaofu even more. In the end, Su Qing, who was ranked 11th on the bronze board, was released from the sky net by Du Xiaofu. However, his fate was exactly the same as Feng Yutong's. Within 7 days, he would not be able to use his profound qi. Running Bull and the other 12 people had been watching everything from the beginning to the end. These guys in front of them were like bandits, directly ravaging and robbing the experts on the bronze board. In the ancient heaven sect, this was something that they had never heard of in the giant rock spatial cave. Fatty, can you help me say that I want to join you? Running Bull quietly pulled Judge Hao, wanting to join the crowd. Okay, I'll help you, but you'll owe me a favor in the future. Judge Hao pretended to hesitate, then nodded. Okay, I'll owe you a favor. Running Bull clenched his teeth and nodded. According to his understanding of Judge Hao, owing this fatty a favor would definitely cost a lot. It would not be easy to repay it. Okay, leave it to me. Seeing Running Bull nod, Judge Hao smiled with satisfaction and patted his chest. In the end, Running Bull naturally joined the crowd as he wished, and he was extremely grateful to Judge Hao. From Judge Hao, Du Xiaofu learned that Running Bull's name was not Running Bull, but Shui Barbarian Bull. However, he did not know why Judge Hao called him Running Bull. Shui Barbarian Bull was not an ordinary person in the ancient heaven sect. He was also an outstanding talent, and his cultivation was at the Martial King realm. At night, everyone was healing their injuries. They did not hide at all. The first place did not need to hide, and was still looking for the people on the bronze board. In addition, there was no place for the 200 people to hide. Late at night, the space changed again. At this time, it was already the 5th day in the giant rock spatial cave. The gloomy space was gray. On the 5th day, the crowd expanded to more than 300 people, and they also met a group of people on the bronze board. It was a pity that the group of people on the bronze board was Feng Yutong, whom Du Xiaofu had robbed the day before. On the 5th day, the crowd did not have any harvest. Other than Feng Yutong's group, they did not meet any other people on the bronze board. It was only at dusk that the 300 people had no choice but to find a place to meditate and recuperate. Those who were injured continued to treat their wounds. Rocks were densely packed, and the mountain peaks were towering. In the dusky valley, dozens of figures with weak auras and miserable expressions stood quietly, not daring to speak. You were actually robbed by a group of rookies. You guys have really made the bronze board proud. An extremely handsome youth with a fair face, thick eyebrows, and a straight nose looked at the dozens of dejected and miserable-looking youths. He was just short of pointing at their noses and cursing. That Du Xiaofu is really too strong. He even gathered a group of rookies to besiege us. We were unable to resist. An extraordinary youth raised his head and looked at the fair-faced youth. His attitude was respectful, but it was not towards the youth in front of him. Instead, it was towards an elegant youth who had not spoken. Du Xiaofu is just a rookie. Does he have 3 heads and 6 arms? The fair-faced youth's face darkened. Su Qing, what do you think of Du Xiaofu's strength? The elegant youth turned around and asked the youth who had just spoken. He looked to be in his mid-20s. Even in the dusky space, one could faintly see his almost 3-dimensional facial features, and his body exuded an elegant aura. The one who had just spoken was Su Qing, who had been robbed by Du Xiaofu and his group yesterday. When he heard the question, his expression became even more respectful. He replied to the elegant youth that Du Xiaofu is indeed very strong. Spiritual soul attacks are very difficult to defend against. The Manchu's Skynet is also in his hands. Its defense is especially strong. I was defeated by him. It seems like that kid is even stronger than we imagined, the youth called Emotion said softly. After hesitating for a moment, Su Qing said to the elegant youth, as far as I know, it seems that our 3 groups are not the only ones who have been robbed. There are other groups as well. I reckon that they will also be robbed if they encounter them. The elegant youth raised his head indifferently. There was a slightly unrestrained smile on his handsome face as he said softly, I reckon that Du Xiaofu has heard the news and knows that the people on the bronze rankings are going to deal with him. That's why he wants to take us down one by one so that he won't be besieged on the giant rock plaza. He's quite clever. Senior brother Emo-chin, what should we do now? The fair-faced youth with thick eyebrows and a straight nose asked the elegant youth with a slightly solemn expression. Let's leave it to fate. Tomorrow is the 6th day anyway. We will eventually encounter him on the giant rock plaza. Ji Aoming and Si Ruofeng are outside. They are not people that he can deal with, the elegant man said in a low voice. On his handsome face, there was a confidence and indifference that should have been there in the first place. The dusky rocky canyon was like a huge python that was winding and coiling. Under the dim light, it left behind a faintly visible grayish-white mark. There were 8 people standing on the rocks in the canyon. 7 men and 1 woman. In the dim light, the woman leaned lazily against a rock on the mountain wall. The woman wore a long brocade dress with a light pink gauze cloak draped over her shoulders. A pink belt was tied around her waist, accentuating her well-proportioned figure. When she leaned slightly, it outlined a graceful, exquisite, and seductive curve. It does seem a little strange. Why are there fewer and fewer fellows on the bronze rankings? I haven't encountered a single group in a day. Even inner sect disciples rarely encounter them. The girl seemed to be thinking about something at this moment. She looked to be around 18 or 19 years old. Her eyes were bright, and her pupils were light purple. Her silky black hair casually fluttered around her slender waist. It added a kind of youthful enchanting charm that was enough to make people fall head over heels for her. Little senior sister, there are only 2 days left. With little senior sister's strength, it shouldn't be difficult for us to get out safely. A youth spoke. His gaze was deep and his temperament was imposing. He was not an ordinary person. The others aren't much of a threat. However, Si Ruofeng, Ji Aoming, and senior brother Emo-chin have to be careful. The woman's beautiful eyes twitched with worry. She muttered softly, if they join forces, it will be difficult. The giant rock plaza is the final battlefield. There are a total of 15 chapters. All of them can be considered as yesterday's outburst. Today is the first day of the new month. Little you, continue to work hard. On the first day of the month, naturally, I will be rolling around for the guaranteed fresh flowers. However, brothers, from now on, wait until the system refreshes the fresh flower rankings before you send any fresh flowers. Otherwise, the fresh flowers will be wasted and my heart will definitely ache. Readers who feel that Little You is still hardworking, today's guaranteed fresh flowers will be left for Little You. Thanks. Chapter 636. Early in the morning, the giant rock space was still gloomy. Phew, the white light around Du Xiaofu's body slowly receded, and an ancient aura dissipated in the air. Du Xiaofu exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He opened his eyes, and a faint brilliance flickered in his eyes. Squinting his eyes, Du Xiaofu felt that the spiritual energy in his mind had become more condensed. His Naiwen Palace had also become more filled. In his Naiwen Palace, the talisman engravings on the spiritual energy ball were flickering. An ancient aura rippled, and it was like a miniature star. Beside the spiritual energy ball, the desolate space ball slowly rotated. An ancient light rippled and released a boundless light. Ever since Du Xiaofu reached the level of a 6-star talisman master, he felt that his progress as a talisman master was not as fast as that of a 5-star talisman master. After all, the difference between a 6-star talisman master and a 5-star talisman master was huge. The energy required to break through was also 10 times more. Why can't I feel your cultivation aura when you just reached the level of a 6-star talisman master? Qiao Yingming's beautiful figure came to Du Xiaofu's side. Behind them, the people were still adjusting their breathing. Looking at the wild woman in front of him, the tight soft armor outlined her exquisite figure. Her slender legs were exposed and her bright eyes were sharp. She was like a female leopard. This made Du Xiaofu think of that tomboy Ouyang Shuang. What are you looking at? Looking at Du Xiaofu's eyes staring at her, Qiao Yingming instantly took 2 steps back. Her hands subconsciously covered her chest. She did not know what that savage and shameless fellow was thinking of. I'm not looking at anything. Du Xiaofu helplessly glared at Qiao Yingming. Then he stood up and answered Qiao Yingming's question. My cultivation is not high enough, so you naturally can't see it. Your cultivation in martial arts is still low? Qiao Yingming couldn't help but glance at Du Xiaofu in disdain after hearing this. This shameless guy was able to defeat a profound martial king with 1 punch, yet he still dared to say that her cultivation was low. After looking at Du Xiaofu with disdain, Qiao Yingming raised her head slightly. Her face was extremely moving and could be called an absolute beauty. At this moment, she was also looking at Du Xiaofu with ripples of light. She said seriously, "Today is already the 6th day." "Yes, it's the 6th day," Du Xiaofu said softly. He understood what Qiao Yingming meant. Tomorrow would be the 7th day, and the final 2 hours in the giant rock space might be the true battlefield. As for him, it would be even more troublesome. Other than Su Qing and Feng Yutong, we haven't met any of the top 9 fellows on the bronze leaderboard. If they all appear together in the giant rock space tomorrow, we will be in a lot of trouble. Qiao Yingming said. Keep looking. We'll deal with them when the time comes. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Du Xiaofu stretched his body. His joints crackled like firecrackers, filled with a feeling of power. Huff huff. Behind the 2, auras began to awaken one after another. Soon, excited noises began to resound. Keep looking for those fellows on the giant rock space. Teach them a lesson. We're not to be trifled with. Whoosh 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 whoosh. A moment later, several figures appeared in the sky. Hundreds of figures covered the sky as their auras swept out and shook the space. In the vast gray space, there were endless mountains. It was desolate and majestic, and could be seen from far away. Between the mountains, there were 2 groups of figures meeting. They had identical badges on their shoulders, and they were all disciples of the ancient heaven sect. Among the 2 groups of people, the leaders were 2 women. Both sides had 8 people, and the atmosphere was tense. There was a girl on the left. She was elegant and had a heroic aura. She had a beautiful face, and her cheeks were flushed. Her eyes were sparkling, and her eyes were like stars. The hibiscus-faced woman had a faint smile in her eyes. She looked at an 18 or 19-year-old woman in front of her and said, "Junior Sister Mu-ha, what a coincidence. I didn't expect us to meet." A young girl around the age of 18 or 19 was wearing a long brocade dress with a pinkish-white belt around her waist that drew out a graceful and alluring arc. Within her quick-witted eyes, her pupils were suffused with a faint purple color as she gazed at the heroic woman in front of her and the 5 women and 2 men behind her. She pursed her lips into a smile that was capable of toppling cities as she said, "Senior Sister Farong, do we need to compete? In my opinion, your group doesn't seem to be able to gain any advantage." The heroic woman raised her eyes and maintained a smile on her face. She looked at the 7 youths behind the 18 or 19-year-old girl in front of her, and her eyes darkened slightly. Then she said, "Junior Sister Muha, are you threatening Senior Sister? Do you really think that your team can contend against Senior Sister?" "Senior Sister Farong, if you want to fight, I'll accompany you. It just so happens that I want to ask Senior Sister for advice." The woman in front of him was not afraid. She had a smile in her eyes and her silky black hair casually fluttered around her slender waist. This added a kind of youthful enchanting charm that was enough to captivate the hearts of men. Seeing that the other party was not afraid, the heroic woman seemed to have some misgivings. Although this junior sister had only recently returned to the Manchu, she had long heard of her talent and strength. With her junior sister's identity, she probably had a lot of trump cards. Once they fought, she really had no chance of winning. Moreover, this was her junior sister. A moment later, a faint smile appeared on the heroic woman's hibiscus face as she said, "Junior sister, then I won't stop you. I believe that you will meet senior brother Mo Chin. I also look forward to meeting senior brother Mo Chin, but I believe that senior brother Mo Chin might not be able to do anything to me at that time." The woman smiled. "All right, then let's part ways here. However, if we meet in the giant rock space tomorrow, don't blame senior sister for being impolite." The hibiscus woman smiled. "I won't be polite either. When the time comes, please don't take offense." The woman called Muha was still not afraid in the slightest. Her smile bloomed, adding to her cuteness. "At that time, I hope junior sister hasn't met senior brother Mo Chin in advance." As soon as the hibiscus woman finished speaking, she turned her head slightly and said to the 5 women and 2 men behind her, "Let's go." Everyone nodded and was about to leave. The tense atmosphere between the 2 sides slowly dissipated. Suddenly, at this moment, the hibiscus woman and the 18 or 19-year-old woman raised their heads to look at the sky in front of them at almost the same time, as if they had sensed something. Whoosh whoosh, asterisk at the same time, the 2 groups of people raised their heads to look at the sky in front of them. Rumble, in a short period of time, a rumbling sound came from the front of the calm space. The earth shook and the mountains shook as waves of aura spread over. Under the surprised gazes of these dozen or so people, hundreds of people flew over in a grandiose manner. Waves of aura swept out, covering the sky and covering the sun as it swept out in all directions. "It's the guy on the bronze board. Charge, fuck his grandma's bear. Don't let a single one of them go, charge." Amidst the mighty aura, shouts resounded in all directions. Before they even arrived, someone from the crowd that was sweeping over from all directions had already activated his pulse spirit. Roar, beast roars were like thunder as the pulse soul was activated. The pressure descended and rushed over. Symbol weapons were activated one after another. Dazzling light streaked across the sky and filled the sky. All of the attacks were aimed at the hibiscus woman and the other 8 experts on the bronze board. There was no mercy at all as the hundreds of people attacked with all their strength. Over 300 new inner sect disciples of the ancient heaven sect attacked together with all their strength. Furthermore, they attacked 8 people on the bronze board. This kind of vast scene was simply indescribable. Only by personally witnessing it could one understand how shocking it was. The 18 or 19-year-old woman and the other 8 people were stunned when they saw the scene in front of them. It was as if they were in a dream. "Not good, retreat quick." The hibiscus woman seemed to have sensed that something was wrong. Over 300 new inner sect disciples covered the sky and covered the earth. There were only 8 of them. Even if they fought with all their might, both sides would suffer in the end. Looking at the aura of the 300 people, it was simply a matter of life and death. Steal them all, steal them all. In front of the crowd, a purple-robed youth rushed out and howled. His entire body was covered in golden light, like a ferocious beast. Suppress them with all your might. Let them know that we're not easy to bully. Don't let a single one of them go. A fatty was unwilling to be left behind. He waved the sledgehammer in his hand, causing runes to soar into the sky. It was very impressive. So satisfying. Let's go. A sturdy youth followed closely behind the fatty. His aura was shocking, like a bull soaring through the sky. He was also howling and was very satisfied. Rumble, the hibiscus lady and the others were so shocked that they hurriedly retreated. However, they were immediately surrounded and attacked by the hundreds of people who were like bandits descending from the mountains. In an instant, muffled thunder-like sounds of energy resounded in all directions. Bang, bang, bang. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The earth shook and the mountains shook. Runes soared into the sky and spread out. Terrifying energy waves swept in all directions. What the hell is going on? The 18 or 19-year-old woman and the others had already taken the opportunity to retreat. Looking at the hundreds of people who suddenly came down from the sky like bandits coming down from the mountains, they were astonished. They had no idea what was going on. After pulling 2 all-nighters in a row, I finally finished yesterday's update. Today, I slept until 8 o'clock at night, so I only finished the first chapter at 10 o'clock. I won't say much. Little you will be updating a lot today, but the time will have to be pushed back. I apologize to my brothers. Little you is working hard to write. Today is the first of the month, so I'll be rolling around begging for fresh flowers, recommendations, and everything. Still the same old saying, I won't be updating a lot. I'll be delaying the time of the update. Thank you for your care and understanding. Once again, I'll be rolling around begging for fresh flowers. Chapter 637. A chaotic battle suddenly broke out, and it was extremely violent. Maintain the defensive formation and break out of the encirclement first. The hibiscus-faced woman shouted in a delicate voice. Her white wrist shook as she waved her hand, causing talisman markings to surge out explosively. The profound energy within her beautiful figure surged into the sky, and some people were shaken to the point they spat out blood on the spot before their figures fell down from midair. The hibiscus girl was very powerful. Her cultivation base was at the mid-martial profound martial king realm. Compared to Feng Yutang and Su Qing, she was much more powerful. Despite being surrounded by a group of newly promoted inner sect disciples, they were unable to stop her. She's not weak. Suppress them all. A purple-robed young man appeared out of thin air and roared loudly. He took large strides towards the hibiscus woman and waved his hand. His 5 fingers were slightly bent, and a claw erupted with golden light as it grabbed towards the hibiscus woman. Where did this brat come from? Senior sister will teach you a lesson today. The hibiscus woman's face turned cold, and her black hair fluttered behind her back. She waved her hand, as if she had also felt that the purple-robed young man's aura was extremely powerful and domineering. The shadow of a huge python appeared in her hand. Hiss hiss. The mysterious runes on the giant python shadow flickered. It was crystal clear and light danced in the air. It opened its bloody mouth and charged towards the purple-robed young man's claw print. How dare you disrespect your martial uncle? I'll suppress you. The purple-robed young man yelled loudly. His claw changed into a handprint, and waves of mysterious runes swept out. They seemed to have condensed into the wings of a rock. An overbearing and fierce aura swept out from his body like a volcano, and directly collided with the giant python's illusory body. Walala, the giant python shadow's eyes were filled with fear when it was hit by the handprint. It seemed to have felt a great pressure. Then it was smacked away. The terrifying energy swept out and many people in the surroundings were affected. They groaned and were sent flying by the aftershock. So strong. The hibiscus lady was shocked. The purple-robed young man was so strong and terrifying. Her wrist changed again and her hand moved unpredictably. She actually took the initiative to use a talisman longsword that was close to the level of a Dao artifact. Swish swish. The talisman weapon longsword flashed and a dense sword aura filled the air. It seemed as if it wanted to tear apart space as it directly enveloped the purple-robed youth. Oomph, Martial uncle is not someone to be trifled with. Stormy waves palm. Oscillating fist. Profound soul eye. Have a taste of your martial uncle's heavenly net. The purple rogue youth was naturally Du Xiaofu. In the midst of the battle, he kept howling like a bandit. That hibiscus woman was indeed powerful, but Du Xiaofu relied on his terrifying defense, akin to a peerless beast, attacking ferociously. Under the profound soul eyes and heaven's net, the hibiscus woman's fate was exactly the same as Feng Yutong and Su Qing's. Suppress. Suppress. With the heaven's net binding the hibiscus woman, Du Xiaofu continued to rush into the battle. Every time he raised his hand, his attacks were monstrous. Several women ranked on the bronze ranking were mercilessly destroyed by Du Xiaofu, one after another, and fell from the sky. Who the hell is this guy? At this moment, the 18 or 19-year-old girl was shocked. That purple rogue youth was too terrifying. He did not show any mercy to women. Senior sister, he is Du Xiaofu. It is said that he is the new disciple of Elder Gu Qingyang. An extraordinary youth said to the girl. He had seen the purple rogue youth at the Heaven Martial Plaza. He was very shocked when he saw him defeat Yi Xian in one move. He is Du Xiaofu? Hearing this, the 18 or 19-year-old girl seriously sized up Du Xiaofu. She pouted and said, "That guy is really ungentlemanly. He does not show any mercy to women. He must have come from a barbaric land." Rumble. With Du Xiaofu joining the battle, his whole body was covered in golden light. He was like a peerless beast soaring through the sky. He ignored all the attacks and immediately heavily injured several bronze-ranking experts. In the end, under the joint attacks of Judge Hao, Xiao Yingmeng, Mo Wen, Benyu, Mu Jiajia, and the others, as well as the suppression of several hundred people, the remaining bronze-ranking experts suffered miserable fates. After everything calmed down, several hundred people cried out, causing the 8 heavily injured bronze-ranking experts to have ugly expressions. Hand over the energy copper talismans. If you don't hand them over, tie the 2 men together. Look at each other affectionately. Du Xiaofu shouted loudly. At this moment he was like a bandit leader, wailing loudly. "Martial Uncle Du, what about the woman?" An inner sect disciple asked. Among the 8 people, there were more women than men. There were 6 women, and all of them were beautiful and had extraordinary temperaments. Big brother, the leader is called by Fu Rong. She is ranked 8th on the bronze ranking. It is said that she is also one of the sect master's personal disciples. The fearless fatty was a little worried. The one being bound by the heaven's net was the sect master's disciple. Sect master's disciple, isn't that my martial niece? Du Xiaofu chuckled. Then he did not mind and cried out, "Those who do not hand over the energy copper talismans, the woman will be brought home to be your wife. Those who want a wife, bring her home yourself. Get a wife, get a wife." Immediately, the inner sect disciples cried out like wolves and tigers. To be able to bring home a woman ranked on the bronze ranking was definitely the dream of all of these inner sect disciples. But when these words fell into the ears of the female disciples on the bronze ranking, their beautiful faces turned pale. How could these female disciples dare to not hand over their copper energy talismans when they saw this large group of howling young men? Even their last copper energy talisman was handed over obediently, and all of them were plundered. By Fu Rong, ranked 8th on the bronze ranking, did not escape Du Xiaofu's robbery. In the end, her profound qi was sealed by Du Xiaofu. One by one, she could only leave in a sorry state. Eldest niece, goodbye. In the end, watching Bai Fu Rong and the others leave, Du Xiaofu could not help but warmly wave his hand. This nearly caused Bai Fu Rong to cough up blood in anger. After that, everyone began to divide the loot openly. Du Xiaofu naturally took more than the rest without holding back. Next was Judge Hao, Xiao Yingmeng and the others. This time, Ben Yo also obtained quite a few energy copper talismans. His face was full of smiles, and he was even more grateful to Judge Hao. In the end, everyone naturally obtained something, and they all cried out with laughter. Are these really inner sect disciples and not a group of bandits? The 18 or 19-year-old girl stared at the scene in front of her with her mouth agape. She was unable to recover for a long time. These guys were actually experts who had stolen the bronze ranking. Each of them looked like bandits. How could they be the dignified inner sect disciples of the ancient sky sect? As if feeling the gaze of the 18 or 19-year-old girl in the distance, Du Xiaofu looked at her after dividing the spoils and said, "Little girl, have you seen enough? What did you call me?" Hearing this, the woman immediately glared at Du Xiaofu with her light purple eyes on her alluring face. Du Xiaofu seemed to be even younger than her, yet he actually dared to call her a little girl. This was something that only his father and grandmother could call her. "Elder brother, she can't be offended. Her name is Sima Muhan. She is the precious daughter of the sect master. No one in the Manchu dares to offend her." When Hao Bian saw the woman's beautiful face change color, his fat face also immediately changed color. He immediately reminded Du Xiaofu that this was the sect master's daughter, the apple of the sect master's eye. Even if he was not afraid of anything, he still did not dare to provoke her. "The daughter of the sect master, isn't that my little niece?" Hearing this, Du Xiaofu suddenly smiled and said loudly to Sima Muhan, "Little girl, no little niece, I am your junior martial uncle. Is there anyone bullying you here? If there is, junior martial uncle will definitely help you vent your anger." "Stinking brat, if I don't beat you until you look for your teeth on the ground, then my name is not Sima Muhan." Sima Muhan was angry. Her expression changed as she shouted. Then, her beautiful figure stomped the ground and flew into the sky. Her graceful figure was slender and peerless. Although she was still a little immature, she was already very attractive. Boom! At the same time, an ancient single-armed crossbow appeared in Sima Muhan's right hand. It was shaped like a dragon circling around and a phoenix spreading its wings. Runes flowed on the crossbow, and an ancient aura rippled endlessly. It caused the surrounding energy to riot and faintly resound with the sound of wind and thunder. Dao Artifact, Middle Rank Dao Artifact. Sensing the single-armed crossbow in Sima Muhan's hand, Du Xiaofu's expression changed. That crossbow was definitely not ordinary. Then, greed appeared in his clear eyes. A middle-rank Dao artifact was not cheap. Even if that wastrel Du Xiaoyao was here, he would definitely like to eat it. In a short instant, runes soared into the sky and profound qi surged. Dazzling light scattered across the sky like a rain of light. The ancient aura around Sima Muhan's body fluctuated, causing her graceful body to be wrapped in a holy light. On the crossbow, a light arrow directly shot towards Du Xiaofu. As the light arrow shot out, countless runes surged in all directions. The pressure shook the heavens and the earth, causing the hearts of the hundreds of inner sect disciples below to palpitate. What a fierce little niece! Only when Du Xiaofu felt the frightening pressure did he retract his greed. He did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. His expression changed slightly as a dazzling golden light burst out from his body. The dazzling golden light was like a golden sun as it enveloped Du Xiaofu's body, blocking the light arrow that had pierced through space and rapidly arrived before him. Let's see how you block it." Seeing that Du Xiaofu had actually blocked her arrow without using any external force, some ripples appeared in Sima Muhan's light purple eyes. Runes flashed and a second light arrow shot out from the crossbow. Rumble. Compared to the first arrow, the power of this arrow was many times stronger. Wherever it passed, space rumbled as if it was about to be pierced through. Du Xiaofu felt the pressure from the second arrow increase. His face slightly twitched as his aura surged. It was incomparably terrifying. Golden light soared into the sky from his body as he bathed in golden light. Then, a huge handprint shot out. Chapter 638. Sky Shaking Wings. Du Xiaofu slapped out with one hand, and suddenly, layers upon layers of golden talisman patterns burst out, like the angry wings of a rock. Accompanied by the dazzling outline of the wings, it directly blocked the second arrow of light that Sima Muhan had activated. Walala! When the two collided, the dazzling light of the runes exploded. Everyone below was shocked. These two were too strong. One wing and one arrow shattered at the same time. Under the violent runes, Du Xiaofu's body was forced back a step. So strong. Du Xiaofu's expression changed. This little niece was too strong. She wasn't just strong. She was definitely the strongest opponent he had met in the giant rock space. Sima Muhan's delicate face was also moved. That stinking brat had actually blocked her second arrow with his bare hands. This made her very clear in her heart that this stinking brat was very strong. It was rare for her to meet an expert that could surprise her. Sima Muhan's heart also rippled. This brat seemed to give her a different feeling. The third light arrow had already condensed. Sima Muhan had shot out the third light arrow. Dazzling runes bloomed and wind and thunder rumbled. The third light arrow pierced through everything and directly appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. When this light arrow appeared, Judge Hao, Xiao Yingmeng, Running Bull, Mo Mujiajia, and the other heroes' expressions all changed. Under the pressure of this arrow, they all felt great danger in their hearts. Du Xiaogang's eyes narrowed slightly. This little niece of his was too terrifying. With a wave of his hand, the heavenly net in his hands spread out. Runes erupted and expanded like a spiderweb. Runes crisscrossed in all directions, emitting dazzling light as they blocked the third light arrow. The two mid-grade Dao artifacts clashed. At this moment, there was a stalemate in the air. Dazzling runes exploded one after another. Under the terrifying aura, everyone below trembled. The two of them are so strong. Xiao Yingmeng Mujiajia, Running Bull, Judge Hao, Mo, and the others were shocked and dumbfounded. At this moment, they truly felt how strong the two people in front of them were. Even as heroes, they were deeply shocked at this moment. Du Xiaofu, who is Du Xiaofu? Bastard, come out. At this moment, half of the sky where the runes exploded, a thunderous voice came from. The sound waves rolled and spread out. Du Xiaofu, who was fighting in the air, also raised his eyebrows. When he heard the loud voice, he knew that the person who had come was definitely not his friend. Sima Muhan's face. Her purple eyes, she bit her lips. The third lights. And the bow and the crossbow inzas. She looked at Du Xiaofu. Her, Sima Muhan looked. The Muhan du Mu. Chi la. The heavenly net disappeared, and Du Xiaofu's expression became serious. A powerful aura spread out from the distance, causing Du Xiaofu to not answer Sima Muhan's words. In the air, he immediately looked forward. In the distant sky, the sound of rushing wind resounded. Numerous figures flashed and appeared in the sky above. Looking carefully, there were a total of 20 figures. The 10 figures in front were especially impressive. They stood there with extraordinary appearances. Each of them had a powerful aura, causing people's hearts to tremble. The ones in the back were by Fu Rong's team that had been robbed by Du Xiaofu not long ago. A young man in his mid-20s had an extremely ugly expression on his face. His white clothes outlined his sturdy and muscular body, and he wore a light green cloak, which added a bit of a free and easy temperament. His eyes swept over the people in front of him. In the end, the gaze of the young man in white clothes fell on Sima Muhan's body. There were quite a few fluctuations in his eyes. Then, as if he had sensed something, he also looked at Du Xiaofu and sized him up. Not good, it's that guy Si Ruofeng. Seeing the man in white clothes, whether it was Xiao Yingmeng, Judge Hao, or the youths behind Sima Muhan, their expressions immediately became serious. Si Ruofeng. This name was definitely famous in the ancient Sky sect. It was even famous in the entire Central Plains. Si Ruofeng ranked third on the bronze rankings. Just this ranking alone was enough to explain everything about Si Ruofeng. The talent of a human king was rumored to be among the top 10 on the silver rankings. As if they had felt the terrifying and vast aura from Si Ruofeng's body, the hundreds of newly promoted inner sect disciples, who were originally shouting when they saw the bronze roll disciples, were now directly suppressed by the invisible pressure until their faces turned pale and their hearts trembled. Who is Du Xiaofu? Come out! Si Ruofeng shouted loudly. The light green cloak on his shoulders fluttered. His aura was extremely powerful. Speaking of which, Si Ruofeng had been searching for Du Xiaofu every day for the past few days. Not only had he not found him, but he had also heard that Du Xiaofu had not only trampled on the people on the bronze rankings in the giant rock space, but he had also robbed them of everything. And just now, Si Ruofeng had accidentally met Bai Fu Rong. From Bai Fu Rong's mouth, he found out that they had also been trampled on and robbed by Du Xiaofu. How could he endure it? He immediately chased after them. The anger in his heart could be imagined. Your martial uncle is here. Who is greeting you? Report your name. Du Xiaofu stepped out. Although he felt that the newcomer was extremely powerful, he could not lose in terms of aura. Good. Looking at the purple-robed youth who had stepped out, Si Ruofeng's eyes flashed with brilliance. A smile appeared in his eyes, and the light was fixed on Du Xiaofu. After a while, he repeatedly cheered. Then his gaze landed on Sima Muhan, and he said, Junior sister Sima Muhan, are you planning to join forces with that guy? Si Ruofeng, I have nothing to do with that stinking brat. You can do whatever you want. We are just watching the show. Sima Muhan shook her head, and a faint smile appeared on her face. She and the 7 people behind her automatically took a few steps back. Someone had come to find trouble with that stinking brat. Naturally, she was happy to watch the show. Alright, since junior sister Muhan is not with him, then let's just watch the show. Hearing this, Si Ruofeng seemed to be a little happy in his heart. It seemed that he was still a little afraid of Sima Muhan. Suddenly, he looked straight at Du Xiaofu and changed the topic. His expression darkened and he said, You have quite the guts to injure the people of my copper list and steal the copper list's energy talisman. Remember me, Si Ruofeng. You will soon be very miserable. As the last word fell, Si Ruofeng's lips curled into a proud smile. He waved his hand behind him and said, Do it. Take care of this group of rookies. Rookies, your nightmare has arrived. As Si Ruofeng's voice fell, the 10 figures behind him suddenly fluctuated with profound energy. The figures seemed to have transformed into lightning, directly attacking the hundreds of new inner sect disciples below. Work together to resist. Qiao Yingmeng, Judge Hao, Stampeding Bull and the others all shouted, and one figure after another rushed out to resist. Fight! Loud shouts resounded. Over 300 new inner sect disciples gathered together, and it wasn't that easy to deal with them. Furthermore, they had already formed a tacit understanding with each other over the past 2 days. Immediately, the new inner sect disciples attacked with all their strength. Dozens of people attacked the 10 copper list experts together. Si Ruofeng stepped into the air, his gaze fixed on Du Xiaofu. He didn't care about anything below, and his target was Du Xiaofu in front of him. To Si Ruofeng, Du Xiaofu had instantly defeated Yi Xian outside, which was an insult to them. In the giant rock space, Du Xiaofu had actually ravaged and robbed the copper list experts. This was a provocation to his copper list. If he didn't properly deal with this brat, he was afraid that the disciples on the copper list wouldn't have the face to leave their names in the ancient heaven sect. Du Xiaofu focused. At this moment, he didn't have the time to intervene in other battles, because he could feel that Si Ruofeng was very powerful. Brat, let me see how powerful you are. As his voice fell, Si Ruofeng's figure flew out, his light green cloak fluttering with runes wrapped around it. He waved his hand, and a palm swept towards Du Xiaofu, accompanied by a large expanse of runes. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes. Amidst the golden light, he sent out a palm strike that easily dissipated Si Ruofeng's palm strike. Seeing that Du Xiaofu had actually blocked his palm attack so easily, Si Ruofeng was also extremely surprised. After that, the aura around his body surged wildly. All of a sudden, the aura of a martial king at the Nirvana realm swept out like a storm. Nirvana realm, martial king realm. Sima Muhan, who was watching from afar, felt the terrifying aura sweeping out from Si Ruofeng's body. Her light purple eyes were quietly moved. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes at this moment. Nirvana realm, martial king realm. The ancient heaven sect's inner sect disciples were probably different from ordinary Nirvana realm martial kings. Then, Du Xiaofu's face turned solemn. The golden qi in his body surged, and a golden light shrouded him. Although you're not weak, I'm afraid it's not enough in front of me. Si Ruofeng shouted loudly, and his figure rushed out like lightning. You'll know if you try. I'm not afraid of you. Du Xiaofu howled, and his figure rushed out like a peerless ferocious beast. Bang, bang, bang. The two of them collided at the same strange speed. Every time they collided, there would be a series of muffled sounds. This was also an intense battle. Seeing this, Sima Muhan had to reevaluate Du Xiaofu. Her light purple eyes were constantly rippling. In the battle between the two of them in midair, one stood proudly, and the other was like a peerless ferocious beast. Rumble. When the two of them collided from time to time, there would be bursts of dazzling light. The energy swept out, causing the surrounding mountains to collapse, and the ground below to crack. Si Ruofeng's attacks were swift and fierce. He had the style of a great family, and he was not an ordinary person. In the future, he would probably become a powerful person whose name would shake the entire Zhongzhou. Du Xiaofu was suppressed at this moment, but he was like a ferocious beast. Between his calmness and calmness, he seemed to be hiding something. Rolling on the ground for a guarantee of fresh flowers. Xiao Yu continues to write at 6 in the morning. Chapter 639. The scariest thing about a ferocious beast wasn't its initial attack, but its final attack. Si Ruofeng gradually retracted his arrogance. The Du Xiaofu in front of him was actually so powerful. No wonder he could defeat Yi Xian in seconds. Walala. Amidst the golden light, a pair of golden symbol wings began to form on Du Xiaofu's back. Regardless of whether it was his speed or his aura, they both rose to the peak. His overbearing and formidable aura caused one's heart to tremble. Boom! After a fierce collision, Du Xiaofu's aura increased tremendously. The golden rune wings opened and closed, suppressing everything. Dang dang! This collision caused both of them to retreat a few steps. A terrifying aura swept out in all directions. Si Ruofeng's expression changed. Du Xiaofu's attack was huge and ferocious. It gave him the feeling that he was in a fierce battle with a ferocious beast. You have some strength. Not bad. But now, let's end this. Si Ruofeng roared as the profound qi around his body surged, causing the originally gloomy space to darken. The sky shook, and the mysterious runes that appeared before him began to condense into a gigantic dragon. This was the manifestation of a beast's power. If one couldn't comprehend the beast's power to a certain level, they wouldn't be able to activate such a beast's power. Roar! The dragon's shadow roared. Its entire body was covered in blue light. Its aura was terrifying and it had an ancient aura. At this moment, the inner sect disciples who were engaged in a fierce battle were already affected by Du Xiaofu's golden rune wings. Now, with the appearance of the Jiao dragon's shadow, each and every one of their pulse spirits were greatly suppressed. Indigo heavenly dragon beast power. Sima Muhan's eyes rippled. The dragon's shadow was extraordinary. It was a demonic beast on the heavenly beast ranking. Its beast power was hard to comprehend. Roar roar. As the flood dragon roared, it swept out from Si Ruofeng's hand and suppressed Du Xiaofu. It was accompanied by a vast and mysterious aura that covered the sky and collapsed the sky. The dazzling runes contained a shocking pressure that caused the surrounding area to tremble. Rumble! The dragon's shadow swept over. Wherever it passed, the ground below would crumble. Gravel would shoot out and rocks would explode, turning into dust. Very powerful. Du Xiaofu's expression changed. His face was serious, but he wasn't afraid. The wings on his back, the dragons. Roar! Suddenly, the illusory Jiao dragon seemed to have sensed the aura of fear. It raised its head and roared, but it still swept towards Du Xiaofu under Si Ruofeng's control. The Jiao dragon soared into the sky, and its pressure rolled out. Rock 9 heavens, suppress. Du Xiao's rock's shadow was rocks rock world rock. The rocks rock rocks rock roof row, roses row his roar. Rumble. A S of Sha of U of. Rune energy shot out like fireworks, causing the entire sky to be dazzling. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was like a giant prong descending. His domineering and terrifying aura filled the sky as he flapped his wings and swept across the sky. His movements were grand and domineering, and he suppressed everything as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. He directly crushed the illusory flood dragon. Roar! At this moment, the Meridian Spirit Beast phantoms that were activated by the inner sect disciples in the surrounding sky were all under great pressure. They roared continuously and almost wanted to crawl and tremble. The pressure of the great golden-winged rock was something that all beasts could not resist. The aura of the golden-winged rock. Did he comprehend the beast energy of the golden-winged rock? Sima Muhan's light purple eyes were filled with shock. At this moment, his eyes were also filled with astonishment. At this moment, Sima Muhan could feel the aura of that brat. It was as if a real golden-winged rock had descended. Si Ruofeng was astonished and seemed to be shocked again. His expression changed slightly, but his expression did not change much. The hand seals in his hands changed again, and his celestial chi gathered crazily in his palm. His right fist suddenly bloomed with radiance. At this moment, heaven and earth trembled, and the energy of heaven and earth in the surrounding was pouring into Si Ruofeng's fist. Under the pressure, the surrounding sky changed color, and the wind and clouds surged. King Grade Nirvana Realm Martial Technique, De Gang Qing Feng Seal. Sima Muhan's lilac eyes moved. Si Ruofeng was using the De Gang Qing Feng Seal, and she naturally knew the martial techniques of the ancient heaven sect. Using the De Gang Qing Feng Seal proved that Si Ruofeng was using his full strength. De Gang Qing Feng Seal. As soon as he shouted, Si Ruofeng rushed out. His figure swooped down, and the palm seal in his hand fell. It was like a huge wave, and the surrounding air was turbulent. The space waves were monstrous, and it suppressed Du Xiaofu forcefully. It was also at this moment that a shout that sounded like the roar of a dragon or the cry of a divine elephant sounded out from Du Xiaofu's mouth, and it resounded through this gloomy and gray space. His violet robe fluttered, and with his body as the center, waves of spatial energy ceaselessly cracked and spread out from beneath his feet. In his clear eyes, a lightning-like radiance flickered. Du Xiaofu's hand seals changed, and the mysterious runes on the talisman bloomed, and it turned into a palm seal at lightning speed. A low hum like the sound of Sanskrit came from the palm seal, and it was accompanied by the mysterious runes that cut across the sky, and it went straight for the former. Boom! At this moment, the ground below rumbled, and the space trembled. The aura was overbearing, and the pressure was unparalleled. At that moment, Du Xiaofu was mobilizing the mysterious move. As his cultivation base grew stronger and his comprehension of it grew stronger, the power of the mysterious move also grew increasingly terrifying. Compared to the past, the power of the mysterious move could not be mentioned in the same breath. In the blink of an eye, the two palms collided heavily against each other. A muffled thunder-like sound of energy immediately resounded in this gloomy and overcast world. Rumble. A large number of runes shattered, and a terrifying energy ripple suddenly swept out like a stormy sea. The impact caused the surrounding mountains to shake, and countless boulders rolled down and shattered. Thud thud, Du Xiaofu's body staggered and fell from the terrifying wind. Just as he was about to fall to the ground, the golden rune wings on his back spun rapidly, and his feet landed on the ground, and he staggered a dozen steps back. Wherever his footsteps passed, the rocks under his footsteps turned into dust, and the surrounding rocks cracked and fell away. Puff! At this moment, there was a trace of pale golden blood flowing out from the corner of Du Xiaofu's mouth, and his face was pale. With the cultivation of a complete martial lord, Du Xiaofu was going against a Nirvana realm martial king like Si Ruofeng. Even if he relied on his abnormal defense and the increasingly powerful mysterious move, he would still be injured. This Si Ruofeng was just too powerful. Previously, Du Xiaofu was still able to fight back. Firstly, he had an abnormal defense. Secondly, the most important thing was that Du Xiaofu's golden winged rock technique had a lot of advantages. Ordinary beasts would be suppressed in front of Du Xiaofu's golden winged rock technique. Naturally, he had a lot of advantages. Thud thud. Du Xiaofu was at a disadvantage, and Si Ruofeng was not in a good state either. His body kept retreating, and he only managed to stabilize his body after retreating 100 feet. He then let out a muffled groan, and seemed to be at a disadvantage. That brat is only a complete martial lord. This time, Sima Muhan was really shocked. Just now, Du Xiaofu attacked with all his might, and he could no longer restrain his martial arts aura, revealing his cultivation of a complete martial lord. Sima Muhan was dumbfounded that a complete martial lord could go against Si Ruofeng, who was a Nirvana realm martial king. What a domineering martial skill! Si Ruofeng's eyes were filled with shock again. The domineering martial skill that Du Xiaofu had just executed was definitely something that he had never seen before. It was too powerful. Rumble! In the surrounding air, deep sonic booms continued to resound. There were a total of 12 extraordinary young men and women on the bronze roll. Although they were surrounded, the difference between a martial king and a martial lord was huge. It was hard for the newly promoted inner sect disciples to defend against them. Mu Jiajia, Benyu, Hao Guan, and Qiao Yingmeng each defended against a disciple on the bronze roll. However, the remaining 8 disciples were not something that ordinary newly promoted disciples could defend against. Although the combined forces of 300 newly promoted inner sect disciples would not result in an overwhelming defeat, nor would they be unable to withstand a single blow, figures continued to fall from midair. This sight caused Du Xiaofu's expression to turn increasingly solemn. Little niece, don't be a spectator. If I'm defeated by him, I can guarantee that you won't have a good time either. Even if Si Ruofeng doesn't attack you, you will be attacked from the back in the giant rock plaza. Help me, or else we'll be in trouble together. Du Xiaofu suddenly looked at Sima Muhan. Sima Muhan was very powerful. If they could work together, they could defeat Si Ruofeng. Brat, if you dare to call me niece again, I can guarantee that I'll help Si Ruofeng to teach you a lesson. Seeing that Du Xiaofu was at a disadvantage and still had the mood to take advantage of her, Sima Muhan's cheeks puffed up. Her lilac eyes were filled with hatred. Du Xiaofu raised his gaze and said to Sima Muhan, "As long as you help me, I won't call you niece anymore." Hearing this, Sima Muhan's eyes rippled. She looked around the battlefield as if she was considering something. Seeing that Du Xiaofu had started to instigate Sima Muhan, Si Ruofeng was very worried. This was because he knew that Sima Muhan wasn't easy to deal with. If the two of them worked together, he would be a little afraid. The main reason was that Si Ruofeng was very clear about Sima Muhan's talent. She was a monstrous existence. Brat, no one can help you. In order to prevent any changes, Si Ruofeng's figure pounced towards Du Xiaofu again. As he raised his hand, a rune energy pillar condensed from profound qi stirred up ripples in the air. It instantly suppressed Du Xiaofu. Continue to update. If you're done reading, please click on the Send a Fresh Flower button on the right. The free recommendation ticket every day is equally important. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.